Right now.
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 Because it's time to write now.
Welcome to the Story and Critique Show. Today, we're going to be doing one of our favorite and most popular streams as we read stories from writers in the community. I will be doing live readings followed by a live critique that's really a cross between an alpha reading type critique or really similar to the type of feedback you would get in an alpha reading or a developmental edit. So we'll be starting soon. Make sure that if you want your story, if you want feedback on your story, make sure to submit in the link. The submission form is linked down in the YouTube chat below. Also pinned at the top of the comments. Welcome to the Write Now community. I'm Kauffman, and I am on a mission to solve the problems of the world by putting a dragon on it. So come join us because we're starting right now. All right, my friends. So I am very, very, very happy to be able to kick off our next critique show, which today is our first critique show of 2025. I'm like, how is everybody doing? First off, I would love to hear how, let's see, how's the Saturday vibes going? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the side. It's crazy. It feels a little surreal for me. Before we get into it, I'm just kind of like, I'm realizing this is the first critique show where I'm doing it in the new studio. I'm used to having to do another setup, and I'm like, no, it's here. I have it. I'm like, I can have my, I'm like, make sure I got my like beautiful little background. I got Jezebel in the back right here and all my collection. I'm like so happy that this is just here and ready. So I'm very, very happy about that. So glad to be able to have my critique show set up. Man, how are y'all doing today? I know we are all so excited to be able to get into some story readings. Let's see, and let me hop into the chat. ML, welcome. You're like, I love these. You know what's interesting? StreamYard doesn't actually show it on StreamYard itself, but I'll throw it up on the screen so you guys can see. So what's interesting, and this is what I love, is like, no, we don't need that. We just want the chat. So what's really interesting is you guys can see it here when I throw it up on here, but the little emojis are like, I had so much fun putting them together. The emojis are exclusively for our YouTube channel members. I am so happy to be able to finally bring some additional value to any of our channel members. I know it's just the beginning. The more members that join, the more emojis it lets me add. So those will continue. I know our channel members now have the exclusive and unique icons that dictate how long they've been a channel member for. So I was like, okay, I was having some fun with that. I'm like so happy. Hey, what's up, Calvin? Welcome, my friend. And chat, Soul in the house. MyBad, welcome. And Courtney, Right Now Romance, or Right Now Romance sticker. I was like, absolutely love that. So cool. And let's see, Nil, what's up? Long time no chat, my friend. And Mass Toaster in the house. And so you're like, actually got 2 chapters edited, finally got work done. You're like, so exciting. I was like, that sounds like you're getting some really great progress today. So more than me, much more than me, but it sounds like you guys are doing good. We got a couple of thumbs up here. I got 2 thumbs up because I am stoked to be able to hop into some story readings. Hey, welcome, Mary. Like, just got done shoveling again. Had help this time. Well, good thing you didn't have to shovel all that snow by yourself. I know I'm ready. I've already put a dragon on it. So I know I'm all ready to get into it. Courtney, like, thank you for including romance in your first wave. Absolutely. Of all the right now emojis that were included, I want to say that I launched it with romance, fantasy, supernatural, horror, and sci-fi. So I was glad I was able to get all 5. And of course, we couldn't launch the emojis without a dragon. Calvin, you're like, hey, Jared, I gave you access to the story. Did you get it? Yes, I did get it. Let me make sure. Let me refresh here. Yes, wonderful, Calvin. I did. Thank you so much. Really, the giving me the access is more so I can make the font larger so it's easier to see on stream, and then also so I can highlight as well. So that's absolutely incredible. I'll be able to pull your story up in just a bit. All right, perfect and wonderful. My bad, Rick. I'm doing good. I had a small heart attack when you started to change the text size. You're like something's happening to my the file. I'm losing it. Yeah, I realized my bad. I need to include any I need to include that I'm going to make adjustments like size, spacing, size and spacing for the stream. I need to include that in the email I send out. And then I also need to be better about sending out the email like the night before instead of 30 minutes before the show. So, but all good. I'm like, wait, I thought I just changed it. I'm like, oh, he's probably freaking out. So totally no worries. All right, beautiful. So as you can see, I have mine all queued up. We're going to be starting at the top of the stream with Welcome to Spellpaige Academy Middle School, a sci-fi magic slice of life by Zencast 5. Now, before we get into it, just a couple of housekeeping. If you're watching on the replay, I got you covered. When the stream ends, time codes get added to the part of the stream. So if you want to re-watch your critique so that way you can get that feedback again, or maybe there's a story that you really liked listening to, you'll be able to hop to that part of the video so you don't have to waste time going through the whole thing. And perfect. So if you want to submit, make sure you submit now. Even if I don't get to your story today, the stories that don't get read today get queued up for the next stream. Right now, the story and critique show is going to be every other Saturday. So it's going to be twice a month for the foreseeable future. So I can alternate doing other types and varieties of streams on the alternate Saturdays. So that will be really cool because I want to continue to bring you guys more value. But if you want to submit, go to the submission form. Let's see. Let me pull up what it looks like. So go to the submission form. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. Also linked in the comments. And this will pull you up to this form here. It'll just ask you a series of questions, things, so that way I know how to properly talk about your story and what to expect. And then you'll be able to submit it as well, and we'll go from there. So definitely submit, and it'll help whether I get to it today or on a future stream. Perfect. And of course, show your support. If, once again, you guys all know this is my main job. This is what I do for a living. To help prioritize, if you drop a super chat or a super sticker, those will help move your story to the front of the line. So if you want to guarantee a spot in today's stream, drop that super chat, super sticker, and that will help support not just myself, but the community as well. And once again, all money that we make through the YouTube channel gets reinvested back into the community for advertising, marketing, and for bringing in bigger guests for future variety streams. All right. And also the Discord channel. I want to get the Discord banner. It's like on my to-do list. All right. Beautiful. And then how do I critique? So let's go into the critiques themselves. So let's see. Let me pull up the critique. Okay. So for the critiques themselves, I tend to look at the critiques in a couple different ways. Like I said, this is a cross between an alpha reading and a developmental edit. So you can see I look for the 5 different elements of storytelling, character development, world building, dialogue, plot, and structure. Obviously, grammar is very important, but I tend not to focus on grammar because we know grammar tends to be more of a later problem once the story is fully fleshed out. So I tend to look for these 5 areas and I ask myself, which one does the story do very well in? Which one does the story have more opportunities in? And as I go through, I will be highlighting. Highlighting is neither a good or a bad thing. It's just a way for me to keep track of where I am at so I know what things I want to talk about when I get over the readings. I don't read any of the stories beforehand. They're all cold readings, so that way they can add to the value of the live experience. I enjoy doing the cold readings. And then also join the conversation. If there's a story that you really like, or if there's, let's say you're an excerpt and you're like, hey, that excerpt was awesome, it really stood out to me, drop a comment. If there was something that you really liked, what was it? Maybe it was like a piece of dialogue, or maybe something that was awesome, drop that. If there's something that didn't work for you, be like, hey, you know what? This didn't feel right, or this felt off because of this. I guarantee you that anybody who is submitting to the show, myself included with my own storytelling, we want to get our stories as awesome as possible. So I'm of the mindset that all feedback is great feedback, as long as we deliver it in a way that is kind and clear. Awesome. Excellent. And with that, I think I am all ready to hop into the first one. So once again, we're going to be starting off with Welcome to Spellpaige Academy Middle School, which is a sci-fi magic slice of life by Zencast 5. Zencast, we're going to be hopping right into your story, my friend. Let me get this back up here. Perfect. You're like, my bad. Yeah, I thought the link got leaked somehow. Yeah, totally no worries, my friend. Totally no worries. Understandable. I'd be freaking out too. You're like, wait, what happened? Susan, you're like, I wish I knew there's another story critique. I have another story I wanted to critique. Susan, you can absolutely submit. What I highly recommend is if you want something critiqued, you should submit now. And then if there's time today to get to it, I will. If there's not, then it will just get added to the next show. What I've started to see over the past, we're in episode 34. So over the past 10 episodes or so of this story and critique show, writers start submitting their stories, either generally starting like the next day after the show, and then they start coming in throughout the week. So definitely, to guarantee your spot, submit sooner rather than later. I always recommend that. Hey, what's up, Sean? You're like, best constructive criticism I've ever received. Absolutely, Sean. We had so much fun reading through your story. I know that of all the stories that we've done on the critique show, yours was one of the ones that we were able to make it through the script. So it was very, very awesome. Very, very cool. And it was definitely a very fun experience. I hope the evil Miss Summers will be coming to life as you're reworking it. I also hope you're doing well in your area of the world as well, my friend. I know everything that's going on over there. So definitely sending you best of luck and wishes, my friend. Okay, beautiful. So with that, I am all ready. So let's hop right into it. Okay, perfect. And I'm going to queue up get this banner down here. Okay, wonderful. Okay. Welcome to Spellpaige Academia, Middle School, Chapter 1. Wanted to make sure that I was on. Hold on just a second. Let me make sure that I was at the right spot. Okay, perfect. And then, so you guys know, just before I hop into it, so right now, this is currently a first draft, and this is always something I had forgotten to share in the past. So this is a first draft. And then the feedback that Zen is looking for, they feel like something is missing from it, but they don't know what. So let's see if we can help them out and give them some solid feedback. All right, perfect. Welcome to Spellpaige Academia, Middle School, Chapter 1. In the tranquil embrace of nature's beauty, I immerse myself in the symphony of sights and sounds, finding solace and wonder in each moment. I find myself under the shelter of a majestic tree, atop a lush green hill overlooking a serene lake. In this peaceful setting, surrounded by nature's stunning artwork, I close my eyes and fully experience the present moment. The melodious flow of water from the lake fills my ears. The sun's gentle warmth seeps through my closed eyelids, and a soft breeze brushes against my skin. From the top of the hill, the view stretches endlessly before me, as far as the eye can see. Out of the blue, a leaf unexpectedly falls onto my face, startling me into opening my eyes. Ah, I was wondering when you would get here. May I ask why you are here? Tomoko? A refined voice called my name. I looked up I looked up the tree to see who the voice belonged to. It was a girl with unique features. She had 4 arms, compound eyes, pale eggshell skin, antenna protruding from her forehead, and a glass hair lob matching the color of her skin. She wore a soothing shade of natural green sundress and matching fur lanes with small white palms on each shoe. One might wonder, why didn't I sense her presence in the tree? Without overthinking, I blurted out the girl's name. Vanessa, guess what? I'm excited to share that I'm finally going to Spellpaige Academy. My excitement was palpable as I jumped up and twirled around. Vanessa is the name of my friend whom I haven't seen since I was 4. We played in the royal garden, sneaked into the village, and had pretend adventures. For some reason, I can be myself around her. But as we sit together, my heart heavy, I say to her, I really want you to come with me, especially given the unsettling news reports about Conchu 6. Vanessa had already climbed down from the tree by this point and was sitting next to me. The atmosphere was thick with a sense of impending doom. And I immediately felt a deep pang of regret for the words that had just slipped from my lips. Conchu 6 is a planet inhabited by insect-like humanoid creatures called Seku. The characteristics of each Seku vary, depending on the specific region they inhabit on the planet. On the news, it was reported that the capital was under siege by another Seku group, known as the Gokiburi. The Gokiburi has always been a thorn in the side in the past, but their recent actions had gone too far. It seems that one of their spies has stolen some sensitive information, an act that neither side is willing to tolerate. As a result, conflict has broken out. The king immediately responded by evacuating the citizens, partially overnight. The royal family's children were among those who were evacuated for safety reasons. The grim reality of a war entering its second year is a testament to the failure of diplomacy and the devastating consequences it brings. I'm deeply concerned. Recalling those new images was quite a distressing experience. It is disheartening to hear and see that not only the physical destruction, but also the financial ruin that befalls the seemingly untouchable royal family. The once majestic capital city, Daijuke, now stands as a desolate reminder of the glory it once possessed. The mere thought of such despair and desolation is enough to make one sick with sorrow and lament for what has been lost. Fear not, Tomoko, Vanessa declared with a strong conviction that radiated from her heart and could be seen in the tight clench of her fist. She stood tall and resolute, like a memorial statue of a soldier, ready to face any challenge that came their way. My family has always been known for their resilience. The words echoed through the air, carrying a sense of determination and hope. Vanessa's posture exuded strength as she continued. Like the legend of the phoenix, we will raise from the ashes. We will be victorious. This I know. Feeling tentative, I point out, I don't know. Can your family turn the war around and restore balance to Conchu 6? I wonder if we'll see each other again. My mind was filled with uncertainty and fear for what the future held. With unwavering faith, Vanessa met my gaze and took hold of my hands in hers. I have no doubt that our paths will cross again in the flesh. We will reunite, my dear friend. Her words brought both comfort and confusion. In the flesh? I asked with bewilderment, unsure of what she meant by those words. Vanessa's response was delivered with a poker face. Just in case you haven't realized yet, this is all a dream. Overwhelmed by sudden shock, I jolted upright from my bed and started scanning the room in sheer panic. To my surprise and relief, I was safe in my own bedroom. So, it was a dream. Oh, I yawned with a hint of disappointment. The location of my dream felt uncannily familiar, like a fragment of an old memory. What struck me as odd was seeing Vanessa in my dream, as I had lost contact with her 2 years ago. Suddenly, my reverie was interrupted by the familiar voice of a young girl. Big sister Tomoko, breakfast is ready. It was my younger sister, Ray, calling out to me. I'll be down in a minute. Thank you, Ray, I responded enthusiastically. As I prepare for the day, pampering myself and getting dressed, my mind is bubbling with anticipation for the big day. The vivid dream that came to me in my sleep still lingers in my thoughts, filling them with wonder and excitement. As I walk down the stairs, ready to welcome the new day, a sweet smell fills the air, tantalizing my senses and filling my stomach. It feels like life is preparing a delicious meal for me to savor. With a heart full of joy and a belly grumbling with hunger, I start this new day ready to enjoy every moment that life has to offer. Awesome. So, first off, thank you for that. That was a really, really cool opening excerpt. And I think I have to say that one of the things that stood out the most to me, I felt like it was very well written. I appreciated you had a unique use of style in telling in being able to forward the plot and the story. I actually felt pulled into it. I would say what somewhere in between Tomoko and Vanessa's dialogue in the middle of that exchange. That's kind of when I got pulled into the story, which is actually pretty good. That's a pretty early spot considering that this is the beginning of the story. I really liked your use of dialogue. When I think about what worked for me, I think the dialogue worked well. There's a couple of things that need to be fixed structure wise, and I can already tell you I know what the problem is that you feel like is off or that it's missing, and I can already know how I'll fix that. The biggest problem is actually it's a structure opportunity, and it'll help clean up this first chapter for you. But before we get into that, I would say dialogue was great. Character development, I'm trying to think. I don't think I got too much character development from our protagonist per se. I think I kind of got more from Vanessa, her dream friend that she hasn't seen in many, many years. So I actually liked the character development of Vanessa a little bit more than a protagonist. The world building was interesting. So we actually got a lot of backstory for the world, and that kind of pulled me in a little bit. I asked myself if the world building, what you shared with us, could have been cleaned up a little bit. And maybe it might be more from like a line editing perspective, but I don't think anything was crazy. I felt like the information that you revealed worked. So overall, I'd say I'm actually very, very happy with where this section is at, especially considering that you shared that this is a first draft. This is in a pretty good place for a first draft. And I would say definitely would be ready to take it into some editing. Absolutely. You're like, Sarah sounds amazing and interesting. Susan, you're like, isn't the dialogue broken in paragraphs? Like, yes, that's actually one of the things that I'll touch on, because that's kind of with some structure and grammar. And yeah, so we'll be hopping into that. One of the things that I noticed myself was that you're not breaking up the paragraphs when somebody new speaks, right? And that's a very easy thing to fix. It's a common dialogue rule. Nail, you're like, good job. I like that he has an alien friend and is set on a different planet. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, all right, let's hop straight into it. Let me pull up the manuscript. Perfect. So, starting from the beginning. All right. So starting from the beginning, so welcome to Spellpaige Academia Middle School. So I liked the opening of it. You're like in the tranquil embrace of nature's beauty. I immersed myself in the symphony of sights and sounds, finding solace and wonder in each moment. I feel like you're doing a good job of kind of pulling us into the ambiance of this world. You definitely use a lot of description in this opening paragraph to kind of fill us with like, okay, it's kind of like calm, peaceful, serene. We're like kicking back and this is like beautiful lake in the background, maybe a flow of water. Yeah, not a waterfall, but flow of water. The sun's nice, breeze. This feels like a nice summer day. And you could tell here, you said the melodious flow of water from the lake fills my ears. The sun's gentle warmth seeps through my closed eyelids, and a soft breeze brushes against my skin. Yeah, I mean, I think I asked myself, was there anything that you could have cleaned up? Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's fine. I was like, you probably could have gotten rid of one of the descriptions if you really wanted to shorten it, but overall it works right now. So from the top of the hill, yep. Uh, Out of the blue, a leaf unexpectedly falls onto my face, startling me into opening my eyes. So a question that came to mind: if their eyes are closed, how do they know it's a leaf? I was like, I guess like a leaf. Out of the blue, something unexpectedly falls on my face, startling me. Out of the blue, a leaf unexpectedly falls onto my face. Yeah, I don't know. And this could just be a nitpicky thing. I'm like, how do they know it's a leaf if their eyes are closed? But I mean, technically it's a dream. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, you could do that. But that was just a point. You might just want to consider rephrasing this or adding just an additional point, right? I would be like, out of the blue, something falls on my face, starting me to open my eyes. I pull a leaf off. Um, it's a leaf or something like that. Let's see, our refined voice. Yeah, so once again, like I feel like I get more personality from Vanessa, which is very, very interesting. I was wondering when you get a refined voice. You're like, interesting. I was like, I actually kind of like that, a refined voice. I look up the tree to see who the voice belonged to. So we basically have Vanessa's this like forearms, eyes, basically this bug looking pale eggshell skin, antenna, and a glass hair lob matching the color of her skin. A glass hair lob. I was like, I don't even know what that is. Well, a glass hair lob. And I'm like, yeah, I have to look that. What is it? Glass hair lob. Yeah, I'll be honest. This could just be a me thing, but I just don't know what a hair lob is. And a glass hair lob matching the color of her skin. But once again, this could just be me. But yeah, other than that, I do like her description. It's unique and it sets this, it highlights this friend immediately. So you do a really good job. And now as a reader, we're like, okay, well, maybe this is just the type of world, right? There's where it's like we got aliens and clearly some type of insect chick. For some reason, when with this visualization, it made me think of the same visualization of the girl from Guardians of the Galaxy, the bug like chick who's one of the main members. But it totally like made me think of that chick for some reason. Okay. So she was wearing soothing shade. Yep. Her description is good. One might wonder, why didn't I sense her presence in the tree? So this is the first structure opportunity. When we do when you do interiority, you don't want to use dialogue or you don't want to use quotation marks. Quotation marks 95% of the time should be exclusively for dialogue. Quotation marks are 90 to 95% of the time exclusively for dialogue. So no quotation marks. There's some exceptions, but I don't but the point of this is you're basically wanting to highlight, oh, this is what they're thinking. One might wonder, why didn't I sense her presence in the tree? And it's like you could highlight that. It's like, let's see. Oh no. Like you could make it its own paragraph. And then I would say stick with the italics if you really wanted to stand out. One might wonder, why didn't I sense your presence in the tree? Or you could, it makes me ask, like, why do you need the one might wonder? So something that writers deal with that interiority sometimes is they sometimes they try to set it up, but the truth is we already know that we are in the main character's head. We already know that are in Tomoko's head, right? So like the reader doesn't need a clue to give us what the character's thinking because we know that she's already thinking. So this one might wonder, it feels kind of extra. So I would just go this. Now, sometimes italics are used to emphasize, and I actually would be fine with you keeping the emphasize. I think it would just be stronger like this, right? She wore a soothing shade of natural green sundress and matching fur lanes with small white palms on each shoe. And then, yeah, I would make that a new paragraph like that. Why didn't I sense her presence in the tree? And then I think this actually leads into this next paragraph pretty well. Without overthinking, I blurted out the girl's name, and I actually kind of like that. Let's see, and it looks like I might have had some suggestions. I think hair lob is just like a wig or similar. Oh, okay, that's good to know. Hair lob, is it a bob or tiny hair sticking up? Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like we might know, and it could just be, I mean, I don't really have much hair, so it could just be that I don't know what it is. But even when I Googled hair lob, nothing came up. So maybe a different word choice, or it could just be a guy thing that I don't know. Let's see. And then it looks like we had a couple calls from the chat. Neil, you're like, opening with the dream can be familiar, so something to consider. The dream sets up exposition, but not conflict. If you dreamed of Vanessa being kidnapped, it might be the something you're missing. That is exactly what I was going to say as well. Now, right now, after the dream, there's no tension on a technical level. The world building is omniscient, but interesting. Mary's like, I like the highlighted description, poetic, sensory, but endlessly and as far as the eye can see. Sounds repetitious, but endlessly and as far as the eye can see. Sounds a little repetitious. I like that. I thought instead of just saying a girl, name her if he knows her, then describe her. I was left wondering what the MC's conflict was. What is the MC's goal wants? I completely agree with that. Perfect. I completely agree with these. So this is actually one of the biggest opportunities from this section is that, and this is going to go a little bit into why the plot is actually the opportunity. The dream isn't really setting up any tension. Now, I think it suggests and it hints at tension a little bit. I think in this draft, the tension that's suggested is that she hasn't seen this friend in many, many years. I also think there's tension that you're setting up in the world building, right? Because you could tell there's things going on when you go into the exposition part. But the problem is that since that's more exposition and world building, that's not tension that directly affects the character in this present moment. So right now, the thing that you're missing, or the thing that you probably feel like you're missing, is some type of conflict, right? And especially with dreams, I was expecting Vanessa to do something like crazy and unexpected at the end, and maybe like, I don't know what the vibe is, but maybe Vanessa like pulls out a gun and like shoots her, or a wand, whatever the world is, or maybe Vanessa, she goes and she tries to kiss her, right? Maybe there's a romantic undertone. There's not enough of the story yet to know, but I think something like extreme. And I think if you do that, if you build up tension, because we got friendship tension. I wouldn't say that there was any type of romantic tension throughout it, but I think if you built up more tension between them and then she does something, I think then you're like, what? Something crazy, and then she wakes up from the dream. I think that would solve that thing that you're missing, the tension point. Let's see, and then continuing on, Vanessa is the name of my friend who I haven't seen since I was 4. We played in the royal garden, sneaked in the village, and had pretend adventures. This section right here is just a little kind of like clunky, because you've already set up Vanessa. Vanessa is the name of my friend. Well, okay, yeah. So Vanessa is the name of my friend. I mean, it's kind of clear here that they're already friends. So this just feels extra. Yeah, it would be better to just say, I haven't seen Vanessa since I was 4. I can't believe she's here. I haven't seen Vanessa since I was 4. I can't believe she's here in the flesh. or something like that, right? So I think that would just be a little cleaner. We used to play together for some reason. We used to play Sneaking in the Village, and we played in the Royal Garden, Sneaking in the Village, and had pretend adventures. Yeah, and then I think you would just set this up. We used to play in the garden, and I think that would just clean that section up a little bit. And then you could do that. Just sit together. My heart, I say to her, I really want you to come with me, especially given the unsettling news. This has already come down from the tree. And by the way, I didn't know Vanessa was in the tree for some reason, and I actually could have missed it, but I thought Vanessa was like in front. I thought she's sitting in the tree, our main character, Tomoko, is sitting in the tree, and I thought Vanessa was standing in front of her. So I think if Vanessa is above her, I looked up the tree. Oh, okay, no, I just missed it. A refined voice call. I looked up the tree to see who the voice belonged to. Okay, I looked up the tree to see who the voice belonged to. I think I would just add an additional like line saying like she looked down at me with those bug-like eyes, or she looked down at me as she hung onto a branch with 3 arms. Something that really calls to the thing that she's in the tree. Because that was just something I missed. And the reason I missed this part is because this is such good description that I immediately lose track of this because you're delivering a lot of information to the reader. All right. And Conchu 6. Okay, so with this exposition here, this is all important for the story. The grammar reality, let's see. So this exposition here that kind of sets up the world is very important to the story, but it does not work in the dream. If we are in a dream, and if we're in the dream of Tomoko, why it pulls the reader out of the dream, or it also solidifies the fact. It makes the reader think, oh, this isn't a dream, and maybe that's what you're trying to go for. Of like, okay, exposition. I want to like trick the reader, and I don't want them to think it's a dream. But the way it's framed right now, it just doesn't feel like the right place for it, because it doesn't add any tension to the stream. Of which, if you want the reader to be more invested, you want to do something interesting that increases the tension, like I was talking about before. So I would actually get rid of this whole exposition part. I would move it to the next chapter after she's awake, and I would instead replace it with maybe she calls out and she says something like, maybe she talks about like the war. She's like, how did you survive the siege or how did you survive the siege by another second group known as the Gokiburi? How did you survive the siege with the Gokiburi? I thought they killed you, those bug-like bastards, whatever you want to do, right? Something like that. I think you make that dialogue and use that to build tension, right? And then if I was framing it, she'd be like, maybe she gets more aggressive, or maybe she gets flirty, right? Like, oh, I thought you missed me. Or you could do something like that, but I think that would be way more effective. I think you can do a little bit of world building there, build that like, but this is just too much right now and pulls tension from this scene. And I think you could do this, and I put this in the next chapter. Okay, but I mean, once again, this world building is fine. I like the world building. This is just the wrong place for it. All right. Fear not Tomoko. I love this actually. So like, I think here, this was the moment that I really started liking Vanessa even more. I like this, like this sense of like this kind of like stoic, heroic nature of Vanessa. I actually thought that was cool. Like the legend of the Phoenix, we will raise from the ashes. We will be victorious. This I know. It totally gives me the vibe of like Vanessa's like this kind of like, gives me like almost an anime character type vibe. If she's like, all right, let's do this unwaveringly, which I actually kind of loved. So I was definitely down for Vanessa's character. I think that's my favorite part of the dream. I really liked Vanessa's character. Right. And then you kind of get this question about Conchu 6. So I like this. I think then you could build that, or you could tie that in to if you build tension earlier on in the conversation. And then just make sure whenever there's a new speaker, and this could have just been from the formatting in Google Docs, whenever there's a new speaker should always be a new paragraph. That's just like a dialogue standard. And then once, just in case you realize, yeah, this is all a dream, this should be a new paragraph. Just in case you haven't realized yet, this is all a dream. Overwhelmed by shock, I jotted up right from my bed. I thought that was great. This was a beautiful moment. I think the dream element will work much, much more if you have built up more tension and if Vanessa is about to do something crazy here. Like maybe she's about to try to like make out with her, or maybe she's about to like pull a gun on her, or just something crazy, right? Because you've kind of led us up. You're like, oh, there's this like bug-like chick with arms, and that's part of the world. So it leads the reader to think this is reality. So I actually really like that. I really, really liked that. Let's say overwhelmed as my younger sister, and then we go to reality. And I think that's most of the feedback I have. Like my younger sister Ray calling out to me. I think I was just saying, I don't think you actually need this here because the dialogue, big sister Tomoko, kind of makes it obvious that it's her younger sister, right? So this is just kind of extra exposition right here when you've already set up that it's her younger sister. And then you also call her Ray in the next dialogue. So this just feels unnecessary. Big sister Tomoko, breakfast is ready. And then once again, always dialogue, new speaker, new line. I'll be down in a minute. Thank you, Ray. Right? And then that works. And perfect. That's all that I got for you, my friend. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I absolutely love that. And let's see. I know I saw a couple comments. Hey, Holistic. Saw you hop into the stream, my friend. Welcome. Tiara, what's up? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. And I saw some other good comments. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. I know, Mast, you had a good suggestion. You're like, maybe cut the dream and have the MC think about her for reason. Maybe hint that the war caused them to be separated. Yeah, I feel like I don't know if I agree with cutting the dream, but I do think that would be a good lead up, right? So after she wakes up, of thinking about like the war, and then you could do the exposition after she wakes up, right? Like Tomoko walks over to a picture of her and Vanessa, and she thinks about the war and the Gokiburi, and then you could do that, deliver that there. I think that would be better. It reminds me of writing article years ago. Shouldn't start with a dream unless a dream prediction what's about to come. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that before as well. I've heard that before as well, that you shouldn't start with a dream. I don't know if I agree with it. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I agree with it because I think certain stories can start with a dream. I think the challenge is you want to remember that your first page, your first chapter, that's your introduction to the world for the reader. And the reason that a dream sequence could be misused is because you're setting expectations to the reader, right? And you set expectations for the first chapter, and then the character wakes up at the end. You're like, okay, well, none of that matters. That was all fake. That leaves the reader feeling dissatisfied because your first experience of them was basically like, here's this stuff. Haha, just kidding. I lied. Right. So that's why dreams could be easily misused. But I think there's great ways that dreams can be leveraged at the beginning of a story. I think you just have to ask yourself, why am I going to start with a dream sequence over just starting in reality? Right. And I think you could make this dream sequence work out because you get introductions to the characters. You could do some more plot building. You could do a little bit more tension. And I think you could really set up the world. So that's kind of my thoughts on starting with dreams. Let's see, LeMay, like you could have it where the MC is getting ready for school, the MC sees something about the war, or the school is reminded of her friend. Flashbacks to an old conversation with Vanessa. Yep, that would absolutely work as well. Absolutely. Yep. Completely agree. Like, for example, I've been thinking about my friend Vanessa lately and don't know why. Since the capital was invaded, I had not seen her. Yep, that would absolutely work. Awesome. Awesome, Zen. Glad you're able to get some value out of it. Love it. Yeah, and I think that's where the opportunity is right now, right? So I think it does do a lot of world building. I think we do get some character development as well. I don't think it's only world building. I do think we get some character development, but the problem is our protagonist is who we want to care about, and we don't get enough character development from our protagonist. Most of the character development is about Vanessa. By the time the dream ends, I want to go follow Vanessa's story. I want to go follow the four-armed, bug-eyed chick. She seems cooler because we just don't know anything about Tomoko. So I think if that's your goal, right? You're like, hey, I want them to care about Vanessa because Vanessa's going to show up in the next chapter and something's going to happen. Cool. But if you want us to care about the protagonist, then we got to have a little bit more character development and then tension. So that way we have a reason to be like, oh, shit, Tomoko's about to die and she seems super cool for some reason. So, hey, what's up, Pause? Welcome. Not at all. We actually just started. Let's see, we're only about 45 minutes in. So yeah, we just got through our first story. Super awesome. Had a lot of fun. So definitely masked, completely agree. Like Zen, hope the suggestions help make your story more awesome. Zen, overall, I like your story. I think it's actually a really interesting world. I'd be really curious to read more. I really hope, and you're more than welcome to resubmit, and I'd love to check out other sections of the story. But it seems like it's a really cool opening. So excellent. So that was super, super awesome. And once again, if you want to submit your story for feedback, it's pinned at the top of the comments. And then also, like, if you want to go submit on the submission form, pinned in the YouTube comments. And then it's also linked down in the YouTube chat or the YouTube bubble description as well. I was like, I don't know why I'm tripping over my words. Let's see. I was like, yep. All right, cool. Yeah, I did link it. So yeah, definitely go submit now if you want feedback on your story for the live reading and the critique. So very, very cool. That was a great experience. I loved hopping into that. The next one we're going to be going into in just a moment. It looks like How Moon Made Wolves. This is a Folklore by Soren Blackwell. So this is going to be very, very cool. I actually really love diving into folklore. Folklore is a very, very fun story type. And what I love is we get to now go experience a different type of storytelling, which will be a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to this. So How Moon Made Wolves, that's going to be our next one. But in the meantime, if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the WriteNow community. If you're looking for daily writing motivation, author interviews, critiques, feedback to be a better writer, strategies, techniques, a very active community, writing events. We got our book club is going to be coming up in this spring. We have a fiction contest, and we have so many other things planned for the WriteNow community. So if you want all that and more, make sure to tap that follow and subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. And if you're already a subscriber, hit that share button instead. So that way you can help us bring in more writers into the community. All right, my friends, wanted to get to that. And I feel like that was a solid excerpt. All right, beautiful. So that was good. Let me queue up the next one. All right, beautiful. So I feel like that was really, really good. All right, and straight into the next critique. Absolutely love it. I always love checking out different styles of storytelling from other writers and other readers. So very, very cool. And you could tell from the community here that you got, hopefully, Zen, you got some really good value. There were some really great comments here in the community as well. All right, beautiful. And let's go into the next story. So we're going to hop into How Moon Made Wolves, a folklore by Soren Blackwell. All right. How the Moon Made Wolves. In the beginning, when the sky was dark and absent of light, and the universe was empty save for the void, who breathed and scattered countless stars across the blackness. In the next breath, stars swirled and galaxies were born. But there was no light, no heat, nothing. Void spoke and brought forth worlds. Each was empty, each was silent. Void thought carefully and selected a stone from each. Void thought carefully and selected a stone from each world, tossing them high into the sky where they spun around their respective homes. For each group of worlds, Void condensed a star until bright light flooded the skies. To Void's surprise, the rocks around each world glowed, shedding both bright and soft light on their homes. Satisfied with the work, Void sighed, bringing life unto the stars. One such world took this sigh and molded it into the rock, the water, and the air. Creatures sprang forth, swimming from the depths, crawling from within, running across the land, or soaring through the sky. Each was unique, each was its own. Moon rose each night following dusk, falling before sun could bring forth dawn. She reflected sun's light for the world, letting him light their days while she softened their nights of darkness. Some nights she turned her attention to the world, watching the creatures as they slept, while other nights she turned away to watch the stars. As she rose and fell, watching the land stay silent beneath her, she grew lonely. Sun's light was warm and inviting, bright enough for creatures to frolic and live under him. Her light was cold and distant. Only occasionally could she speak to her brother, casting a dark shadow across the land as they met. These were the only times she spoke to anyone, and with every passing night, her loneliness grew. One night she wept, sending sparks scattering across the black. A spark grew bright, illuminating the land and revealing some creatures sleeping in the forest. One creature rose and looked skyward, his short hair, his short fur, dull in her light, his eyes pale and jaws small, his legs thin and brittle. In a weak voice, he called to her, but she did not hear him. Worried for the moon's weeping, he traveled to the tallest peak. And he could and called again. Moon, why do you weep? The stars are bright, but your tears are brighter. The light they shed is as bright as sun, yet they are cold enough to freeze. Moon ceased her weeping at once. I am sorry. I did not know. The creature sat and tipped his head up. How could you? You cannot see you the way we do. But why do you weep? What would make a celestial such as yourself sad? Moon sighed a cold wind. All creatures run and play with sun while they sleep beneath my light. I am lonely. I have no one to play with, no one to talk to. Sun says I am too cold, but I cannot change that. I cannot help that I sleep during the day and am awake at night. The creature was silent, then called up. I could talk to you. I am little, but I do not wish to see you so lonely. I know what it is like to be alone, what it is like to have no one. Moon brightened. Thank you, little one. But can you stay awake? The creature nodded. I can stay awake. But if I may ask a favor, what could you ask of me? You are right. Your light is cold, the creature responded. Could you give me thick fur so that I might stay warm? Moon thought this was reasonable. Flooding her light over him, his fur grew thick and silver, enough to withstand even winter. Thank you, he called to her, leaping with joy. His glossy fur shone brightly in her light. I shall come here each night and talk to you, and sleep during the day. Overjoyed, Moon thanked him before she fell beneath the sky for the day. The next night, she had moved to a different sky. Yet before the night was half over, the creature returned, climbing the mountain below. His fur shone silver under her light. Moon, I promised I would come tonight, but I am sorry I'm late. Moon sighed. It is all right. I moved through the night. I cannot expect you to be able to follow. The creature thought for a moment, then called. But what if I could? How could you follow me? Moon asked. The creature hesitated, but then called out. Give me long legs and strength so that I may follow without growing tired. I could race you each night, meet you when you rise, then return to my den at dawn. Another reasonable request. Moon shone her light on him, and it poured down like silver rain, wrapping around his short legs and small chest. His legs stretched and grew, long and powerful, while his chest broadened to hold the strength of endless travels. When the glow faded, he stood tall and proud, his form graceful and strong. Now you can run all through the night. You shall never lose your breath, and you can reach further than you ever could before. The creature leaped high into the air. Thank you, Moon. For that night, he raced Moon to the horizon, then returned to his den during the day. The next night, the creature raced across the land, his long legs carrying him far and wide. He ran through forests, over rivers, and up mountains. But when Moon rose high in the sky, he paused on the tallest peak he could find. Moon, he called, his voice carrying into the vast darkness. I followed you all through the night, but I cannot see you as clearly as I wish. Your light is bright, but the stars blur and fade when I try to watch them. My eyes are too weak to see the world as you do. Moon tilted her gaze toward him. You wish to see me and the stars more clearly? Yes, the creature said, lowering his head. I wish to see all that you see, to marvel at the beauty of the night you light. Moon was silent for a moment, her light softening as she considered his words. Then I shall grant you sharper eyes, little one, so that you may see the land as I do. Her glow washed over him, filling the night with a silvery haze. The creature blinked as the world around him sharpened, the edges of every leaf and stone glistening under her light. He looked up, and the moon shone clearer than ever before, her craters and curves gleaming like rivers of silver. Thank you, Moon, he cried. I see you now, so bright, so beautiful. And the stars, I shall see them all and tell you everything I see. Moon's light brightened with joy. Then let your sharp eyes guide you, little one. Watch the world below and the skies above and tell me of their wonders. Each night, the creature told stories of everything he saw, some that Moon knew and many that she did not. Despite the cold, he stayed awake. No matter the distance, he followed, and he always had new stories of what he had seen. With the arrival of winter, the landscape transformed, his voice lost to the elements, and he was enveloped in an overwhelming hush. The creature's silence weighed heavy on Moon's heart. Each night, she longed for his stories, the tales that painted the world in colors her cold light could never bring. Now, all she heard was the howling wind. Little one, Moon called softly, her light stretching across the land to find him. I miss your voice. Will you not sing for me? The creature lifted his head, his silver fur ruffled by the relentless wind. He opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came, only the gust that drowned him out. He lowered his head, frustration brimming in his sharp blue eyes. Moon, he thought to himself, though his voice could not reach her. I want to sing, to share the wonders of the world with you again, but the wind is too strong and my voice is too weak. Moon watched him struggle, her light flickering with sorrow. If you cannot speak through this wind, little one, I shall give you a voice louder than the storm. Her glow grew brighter, the cold silver warming for a moment as it bathed the creature. He felt the change deep within his chest, a vibration that surged up through his throat. When he opened his mouth again, a sound like no other sound echoed in the night, a rich, resonant howl that cut through the wind and rose to meet Moon in the sky. The howl carried the essence of the stories he longed to tell, the beauty of the stars, the whispers of the forests, and the roaring rivers. It was as though the entire world spoke through him. Moon's light brightened with delight. Your voice is magnificent. It soars above the wind, little one, and it fills the night with life. Now I shall always hear you, no matter where you are. The creature tilted his head back and howled again, his voice strong and steady. For the first time in many nights, Moon felt whole, her loneliness chased away by the song of her companion. For many nights, the creature's howls filled the sky, weaving songs of wonder and delight for Moon. He told her of the mountains he climbed, the valleys he crossed, and the stars that danced above. His voice was strong, his legs swift, his eyes sharp, and yet, as the nights passed, a shadow began to creep into his heart. Though he loved Moon dearly and cherished her talks, the days felt long and empty. The warmth of other creatures playing and roaming together beneath the sun was a sight that pricked at his heart. His days were filled with sleep, to rest from each night with Moon, so he could not join them. One night, as he sat atop a lonely hill, gazing at her radiant glow, the creature sighed. Moon, always watchful, noticed the sadness in his howl. Little one, why does your voice tremble with sorrow tonight? She asked, her light softening. The creature hesitated. Moon, you have given me so much. Fur to stay warm, legs to follow you, eyes to see your beauty, and a voice to speak to you. But what? Moon pressed gently, her light curling around him like a comforting embrace. He lowered his head. I am still alone. I love talking to you, and I will always follow you. But when you set, the world feels empty. I cannot share my stories during the day, and the other creatures shy away from my silver fur. I wish for a companion, someone who can walk beside me and chase the stars with me when you cannot. Moon was silent for a long moment, her light dimmed as though she were deep in thought. A companion, she murmured, someone who can share in your journey and keep your heart warm, just as you have kept mine. Her light brightened again, and she said, Then tell me, little one, what kind of companion would you wish for? He thought for several moments, then raised his head. Someone like me. Someone who can run for nights on end, sing loud enough to reach the stars, and shines like your light. Give me this companion, and we shall sing and always belong to you. Moon's light shimmered softly, as if contemplating the creature's words. She gazed at him, her glow like a warm silver embrace, filling the night sky with a gentle, comforting radiance. A companion like you, to share the night and sing beneath my light, she mused. A companion who could be as steadfast and enduring as the stars themselves. Someone who would carry the night with you. The creature waited, his heart beating faster as the silence stretched between them. In the depths of the night, he could feel the pulse of the world, the anticipation, the yearning for something more. Finally, Moon's voice broke the stillness. Filled with compassion and wisdom, your heart is full of longing, little one, but I must ask you this. Would you be willing to share the world, to welcome this companion, not just into your nights, but into your heart, your spirit? For to create a companion like you, like your heart desires, would mean giving a part of yourself. The creature's silver fur rippled in the wind as he thought deeply. His eyes glimmered with a spark of determination. Yes, Moon. I am ready. If I must give a part of myself to bring them to life, I will gladly do so. I have known loneliness for too long, and now I wish to share my world with someone who could stand beside me in day as in night. Moon's light flickered brighter still, bathing him in a glow so soft, so full of warmth. Then I will grant your request, she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of the ages. But know this. The companion you seek will be as much a part of you as your fur, your voice, and your legs. Together, you will share the stars, the songs, and the silence of the night. With the final radiant sigh, Moon extended her light down to the creature. Her glow enveloped him completely, bright enough to make the stars themselves seem dim in comparison. From within her light, the creature felt warmth in his chest, a pulsing heat that filled him with energy. His fur shivered with the new life that swelled around him. When the glow finally faded, the creature stood before her. Before him was a reflection of himself, yet different. His companion had taken form. His new companion met him by touching noses, and when she spoke, her voice was soft as wind and light as starlight. I will never leave your side through night or day. He gazed at the moon and sang out, "Thank you, moon. Now we shall never be lonely in day as in the night." With that, he and his companion let out a melodious howl that echoed across the star-studded black, a sound that cut through the silence of the night. When their song had faded, Moon called to them, "My friends, from now on you will be known as wolves, and I will listen for you always." All right. Wow. That was a really, really good story. I was wow. Wow. I'm like kind of I'm not not shocked. That was just a really good story. I was very, very moved by that. I thought that was a very beautifully written, heartwarming tale of the creation story. It's definitely a creation story of wolves. I really, really liked that. And the fact that it's told from the point of view of the moon is actually very beautiful. Like that was it was like it was just it was poetic. And I think it was heartwarming, it was poetic, your use of language is really spot on. And I think you really captured the tone of the story that you wanted to tell. I know in your original, let's see, let me pull up the critique show. All right. So in the original, let's see where did it go. Hmm. All right. So let's see. The feedback, like just general feedback. Would this work as a kid's illustrated book? Absolutely. It feels like, and I mean, like, you really could go take this in two directions. I think this totally could be a children's book if that's what you wanted to go for. You could also like make it a little more mature, but I think this could work as a children's book. It's a very heartwarming story. I mean, what is it? I mean, this is 21. It's what, 21 pages. Let's look at if I take it back down to 12 point font. So it's really about a 10-page story, give or take, like about 9. Yeah, so it's about what's that? Yeah, so it's roughly about it's like a 10-page story. And then I ask as a children's book, I could totally picture it with the different pictures at each section of it, right? And I could see like the images of okay, of like the moon in the beginning and then the sun and the moon in the beginning and then showing I totally like envision the pictures of like the moon and then this creature who's becoming a wolf at each point of the story. Like it was just very beautiful. I think this was very well done. I think this could absolutely be a children's story. Absolutely. But I would say when I say children's story, I almost think it could be a little older just because from some of the language. I mean, I guess this is some, and I mean, I don't know the children's market. I don't know the children's story market at all. Let me just start with that. But with that in mind, I was like, I could totally see this as a book that parents would buy and then read it to their young children. I could see it working as that potentially. That relies more on the pictures, though, I believe. Like you would really have to do the pictures justice on whether you created them or whether you hired an artist. Let's see. And then additionally, what else? I think, but I think like for a reader, like I think this would work for like a young reader. Yeah, but I mean, like, totally, and I could totally see, like, even the cover of it having to do something with, like, a wolf or something that looks like a wolf, and then the moon. How the moon made wolves. Yeah. You know what's interesting is I almost would consider renaming the title. I think that's something that comes to mind. I would consider changing the title. I mean, this is very direct what it's about, but I almost feel that part of the tension of it, part of the thing that I don't know is that like, oh, okay, she's creating a creature throughout the story, and then the emotional impact at the end is, oh, this is a wolf. This is a wolf. So I feel like the title should be something that suggests it without telling us what it's actually about. Okay, cool. You're right. The title is definitely a work in progress. Good to know. Yeah, I could totally see it as well. That's like LeMay, that's a great point. I could totally see this as an animated short as well. This would definitely be a great animated short. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree. That's a really good idea as well. What's up? Welcome, by the way, Marcella. Glad to see you in here. You're like, you could do like a beginner's chapter book where one page is illustrated and the other is text. Yeah, I think that could totally work. I think there's definitely a number of directions. You could take it in. Now I'm asking myself what needs to be cleaned up and what opportunities are. I think you have to figure out first off what age range you want to write this, or what age range this would be for. Because I think depending on the age range, you might have to simplify the language. Um, if this is for a younger reader, they're just not going to understand things like they're just not going to have they might not have a more comprehensive reading skill set. So I think you just have to figure out specifically like what age range of children's story would this be for. If you're going for like young child, then you would have to simplify the language. If you're going for like, I don't know, elementary school, maybe. I'm not sure. And this is because once again, I don't know the children's market very well. But yeah, I would recommend you should reach out to the two children's authors that we had at the Right Now-thon, Jackie and Teresa, because that was definitely their market. They were very knowledgeable about that. I'd recommend reaching out to them if you have questions about children's market, because that's like their niche. Let's see. But in terms of the story itself, I think the character development was strong. The world building was awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think mostly I think the story is really ready for an edit more than anything. It's just in a great place. I think most of the things that I even called out to were just things that I really liked. Like in the next breath, stars swirled and galaxies were born, but there was no light, no heat, nothing. Yeah. All right. And let's see. Guys, I'm so sorry. Hold on just a second. I'm going to be right back. I have to go fix something. 1 second. BRB. All right. So where was I? So yeah, so I really liked that. Once again, most of the things I highlighted were just things that I was really impressed with. I think the biggest opportunity, I think from a developmental perspective, is I think I want to see a little bit more definition of who is the wolf and what does the wolf look like before he becomes the wolf. I think that's the one part that I'm not clear about. Moon rose each night. Some nights she turned her attention to the world, watching the creatures. I think that was good. I mean, you did a good job on setting up the moon. Yeah, because you went from the void, I think, to the sun. No, you went from void to the moon. In this beginning section, so when you're talking about the void, in the beginning, when the sky was dark and absolute of light, and the universe was empty save for the void, who breathed and scattered. I think I might just clarify and clean up that void is a character, and the universe was empty save for void. Save for the void, who breathed and scattered countless stars. In the next breath, stars swirled and galaxies were born, but there was no light, no heat, nothing. Void spoke and brought forth worlds. I think I would just connect this a little more clearly, that one of these rocks that Void brings into the sky is Moon. I think you could have a better transition, a better connection between the two. Only because this transition here from the Void to the Moon section was just a little abrupt. So I think I would go to Void surprise the rocks around each world glowed. One such world took this sigh and molded into the rock, the water, and the earth. Each was unique. Each was its own. One of these rocks came to be known as the moon. something as simple as like that. I think that would just be a better transition for cleaning it up. Mars. Oh, I love that, Mars. Here's some possible titles: The Moon's Companion, Why the Wolves Howl, The Lonely Moon. Lone Wolf. You're like, Marcella, I love the Lonely Moon title. But I love that as well. You're like, The Lonely Moon. Marcella, it's a great name. The Lonely Moon. I love that. That's perfect, and it doesn't give away the tension and the plot of the story at all. I think that's a beautiful name for this. Once again, perfect for a children's book. Absolutely. Let's see. So I think cleaning up that transition to moon, that's important. What else? Only occasionally she spoke. Only occasional could she speak to her brother, casting a dark shadow across the land as they met. These were the only times. Where was it? Okay, so I think something to fix is Sun's gender for Sun. I'd assume Sun was female as well. Um, Sun's light was warm and inviting, bright enough for creatures. Her light was cold and distant. Okay, so because this is Moon. Okay, so I would just clarify Sun's gender because then she said is only occasionally could she speak to her brother. But you kind of say her light. I know you're referring to Moon here, so I think this just needs to be put into a separate paragraph because I get why you're doing that. And I think you need to clarify Moon. Like, I think you should, when you introduce Sun, she reflected her brother Sun's light for the world. I think you just need to set that up so that way there's no confusion that Moon is the younger sister or the other sister of Moon, the brother sister. I think it's perfect that you have a brother and sister. I think that's actually beautiful, but you just need to clarify that. All right, so one creature rose and looked skyward, his short fur dull and or light, his eyes pale and jaws small, his legs thin and brittle. So I think the question that I kind of have in mind is what is this creature? So before this creature is a wolf. So before the creature is a wolf, specifically, what is the creature? And I think I personally want to know what is so this creature has short fur, eyes pale, so short fur, pale eyes, and a small jaw with small legs. So is this creature, is it a human? So is this like a human gets turned into a wolf? Or is this just like more like a dog? Like I think I personally want a little more definition on what is the creature before. Or because I mean, or is the creature just a weaker version of the wolf? Is it like Wolf 1.0? So I think I kind of want that almost like because I almost thought for some reason I thought that the creature might originally be like a human. I don't know why I assumed that, and that it's like they become a wolf because that's what it is. This was inspired by Native American mythology, but changed to reflect my own ideas, which I loved. One creature rose and looked skyward. Yeah, so I think I might just clarify more like a generic canine. It didn't have a name. Okay. Um, okay. I'm thinking through that then. Yeah, because I mean, I understand why. I understand why you're not trying to distinguish it or define it because you want the tension to be this it becoming the wolf throughout the story. I almost wonder if okay, so it's like another type of dog or a canine. I don't know very much about wolf. I don't know very much about wolf. Yeah, and this could just be personal preference, but I think I just want it more clearly defined who this creature is because I know the creature is going to become a wolf, but I want to be able to have, and especially if this is a children's book, you're going to have to paint a picture of what the creature is, right? So you're going to have to define, is this like a dog? Is this like a weaker version of a wolf? You said a generic canine. I'm not sure what that actually. I'm just not sure. Just does that mean like a dog? But I also don't know wolf species very well. So yeah, I think just something to think about, especially since I'll have to paint a picture. Let's see. And then weak voice, moon, why do you weep? The stars are bright, your tears are brighter. That's all good. Yeah, and then I mean, Moon thought this was reasonable, flooding her light over him. Yeah, and then I mean, most of the story is fine. Like I actually didn't have a problem with most of the story. I was actually really pulled into it. There was a moment where I was like starting to feel a little emotional reading it. And I'm like, that was just well done from a writing perspective. Very well done. Oh, this section here, you said Moon, he thought to himself. No dialogue if it's interiority. Unless he's like saying it aloud. Moon, he said to himself. Like that would be the only exception. Like Moon, he said to himself. Right? If you did that, then you could. But if this is interiority, you don't even need the he thought to himself. This is kind of extra because we already know that he's thinking. Wait, let's see. The previous, the creature lifted his head, but no sound, only gusts. Yeah, and I mean, I think from the way this is singing, or from the way you frame this, I think this would be Moon. He whispered. He whispered underneath a gentle breeze, something like poetic. Though his voice could not reach her. Yeah, and I think I would do something like that. I want to sing to share the wonders of the world with you again, but the wind is too strong and my voice is too weak. So just something like that to consider. So you clarify it, right? If it's not spoken, then it should be interiority. If it is spoken, then clarify it with a speech tag. Let's see what else. The creature's silver fur rippled in the wind as he thought deeply. His eyes glimmered with a spark of determination. God, and this is such a beautiful moment. I love that the last transformation is a mate. I actually love that. And I think there was something that you missed here. I think so. There's something that you missed here. I think it would be helpful. I think it would be good to reference that she makes him a pack. This is like the start of a pack because like wolf packs, like that's a thing. He gazed at the moon and sang out, "Thank you." I feel like it should be referenced somewhere. Almost like I almost wondered if like his new companion, her voice was soft as wind and light as starlight. I will never leave your side through night or day. You are my pack, or we are a pack, or something like that. Because like wolves are always known to be in packs, so I feel like you could like throw that in the word pack somewhere, whether it's the moon is saying like I will make you a pack, or whether it's them together. So I think you could toss that in somewhere for wolf culture. And when their song had faded, Moon called to them, "My friends, from now on you will be known as wolves." My friends. And actually from this last sentence, I think I would actually just rearrange this. My friends, I will listen for you always. My friends, I will listen for you always. From now on, you will be known as wolves. I think this last sentence is a little more impactful if you end on wolves, if that is the final closing sentiment. My friends, I will listen for you always. My friends, I will listen for you always. From now on, you will be known as wolves. I think that's just a little more powerful from the wolf, that you end the last sentence on the wolf bit, but that's just a personal suggestion. Okay, perfect. And I know we had some great comments from the community. Let's say, and I touched on some of them. Yeah, and I could tell the community really loved it as well. Let's see. Hey, what's up, Dion? I saw you hopped in the stream. How does the MC? First, you're talking about the previous one. Let's see. I submitted a move. That's kind of going in the description. I submitted a wolf. Now, by the way, I know you said you submitted a story, but I didn't see your submission come through. So I would say just double check that you had submitted, because I didn't see it come through on the critique form. So just double check your submission, because I didn't see it come through, my friend. Let's see. Really like that. Yep, that's fantastic. Yep, kid story. Absolutely picked up on that. Just defining it. Could tell absolutely there was a lot of love for this. Now that's totally could like you. So you could totally do this. Take this in a direction where like this is like the wolf origin story, and then you do another origin story with like the sun and like another species. You could totally do a series out of this if you really wanted to. But this in itself is a very good standalone origin story. Oh, okay, perfect. So it sounds like you're ahead of us on this already. I absolutely love this one. I would make an enchanting picture book, I think, accompanied by gorgeous illustrations. Absolutely agreed. Yeah, I mean, this could actually make that last ask a little bit more powerful if instead the wolf asking for a mate, that you have the wolf crying and howling at the moon. Yeah, and especially like we have to think about it like the moon is the protagonist. So I think focusing on that it's the moon's decision and it's the moon's idea to give the wolf the companion, I think really playing into that will help make that final moment even more profound. You're like, this was inspired by Native American mythology, but changed to reflect my own ideas. Absolutely. Perfect. So there's an origin for wolves, coyote, deer, and owls. Courtney already knows the origin story that we want. So the sun and dragons. There you go. That's the origin story. All right. How did dragons come into existence? All right. Maybe I'll do that for the next short story. We'll do a dragon origin story. That'd be a lot of fun. All right. So, but that was an awesome read. So thanks so much again for submitting. I had quite a lot of fun reading that. Thank you. Thank you again, my friend. So hopping into the next one, once again, make sure to submit if you have not already. The next story we're going to be hopping into is The Rise of Gabriel, fantasy story by Calvin. Calvin, I'm going to be hopping into your story next, The Rise of Gabriel. Excellent. So definitely hopping into another one. Marcel, like, yep, definitely looking forward to owls. I love owls as well. Perfect. So, Calvin, we're going to be hopping into your story next, The Rise of Gabriel. So we're going to be hopping into this. Ooh, we get to hop into our fantasy genre. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But first off, before we get there real fast, I am now accepting a new editing project. So I've had an opening in my client's schedule. I am now going to be taking on a brand new editing project. So what that means for you, if you're looking for editing services, whether this is an alpha reading, a developmental edit, a line edit, a proofread, or anything of that editing or reading nature, reach out to me. I am now going to be accepting a new client to accommodate my schedule. Once again, if you want to know more about my editing services, you should go check out my writing service website. I'm going to drop it here. It's also down in the YouTube description. But if you want to know more, here's this list what my editing services look like. My rates for editing is about, I would say it's about 20% below market value. Maybe it's about like 30%. below what market value is, I charge on a per word rate depending on what type of editing service. Now, the thing that you guys really get with me, and this is what I do different, not only will you get an editing guide, but I also include story Bibles. So in addition to your editing, in addition to the edit, you're going to also receive a story Bible, which is basically a detailed outline that goes over the character development, world building, dialogue, plot structure, like the story elements. There's also marketability, summaries, and there's like a whole mix of other things I include in it, which is a plus, an additional thing you get for going with my editing services. So highly, highly, highly recommend if you're interested. And then additionally, I also give discounts for first-time clients, and I also give discounts for RightNow community members. So let's say you're like, hey, you know what? I'm working on a project and I'm going to need it edited within the next like 1 or 2 months. I would reach out now because my services get booked up pretty quickly. Like my services get booked up, and especially you guys know me, right? Between the client work, between RightNow, and then my other life commitments, I tend to be very, very busy. So even if you're just like interested and you're like, hey, I just want to know more, we can always hop on a quick call, no charge, and we can kind of talk through what it is that you're looking for and what you have in mind. So highly recommend. If you want to know more, or you want to reach out, shoot me an email. And let's see, Kauffman at the-career-ghost.com. You can follow the link to the website. There's places to submit. Shoot me a message on Discord and let me know if you want to know more or you want to talk through it. So absolutely, that'd be super cool, and would love to take on a new client. Oh, I love working on writing projects. So definitely very cool. Courtney, thank you so much for that. You're like, totally reach out. Kauffman is amazing, and the feedback is so helpful. And the amount you get is almost like you're stealing from him. Thank you so much, Courtney. I really, 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 really appreciate that, my friend. Thank you again. All right, my friend. So wanted to do that quick call out for my editing services, and we are going to be moving right along into The Rise of Gabriel, a fantasy story by Calvin. And let's see, make sure I got to pull it up here. All right, and bear with me one moment. I have to fix all the I have to just adjust the spacing, make sure it is in a good place. All right, perfect. And I do not need Grammarly. All right, awesome. Perfect. So let me throw this up. While I'm getting this up, how are you guys doing? How are you guys liking the reading so far? I'm like, this is something that I'm always curious when I do the critique shows. Do you guys get a lot of value out of just like listening to the different readings? Or is it more like, hey, does it give you insight into how it would help your own writing? Do you guys ever learn from doing like seeing other people's writing? Or is it just like, hey, I'm just here to read and enjoy? I would love to hear what's your favorite part about the critique show. So drop a comment. I would love to hear from you. What is the part about the critique show or the critique stream that you enjoy the most? I would love to hear from you. Absolutely. This is always something that I'm kind of curious about. Awesome. Now you're like, you submitted. Excellent. Perfect. Yep. Saw your submission come in now. Wonderful. All right. Beautiful. Hey, what's up, Megan? Welcome, my friend. We are actually just about to hop into a fantasy story reading. So I think I am all set on my end. Let me throw it up here. Here we go. All right. Perfect. So we're going to be hopping right into it. Let me pull up. All right, beautiful. So I'm going to be pulling it up here. And I think I am all set, Calvin. Okay. Make sure I am all set for this. Mast, I really love that. I really love that. Once again, I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I should probably just throw this up as a Q&A. I was really kind of curious. The show chat, I'll throw it up as a Q&A question. Makes this a good question. Start a Q&A. What is your favorite part of the story and critique show? Drop a comment. All right, perfect. So definitely I would love to hear from you guys. I just started that as a Q&A. I would love to hear what's your favorite part of the critique show. It always helps me continue to deliver you guys value and what you like. All right, perfect. And your favorite part is helping in a small way to help make my fellow writer's story better. Really, really appreciate that. Awesome. You're like, Megan, different writer stories, even if it gets a teensy bit weird sometimes. Yeah, and I think sometimes because we read writers from all different genres. So there's things where like we get such a different we get such like a variety of different types of storytelling on here for sure. Okay, and let's get into it. The Rise of Gabriel, prologue. It was a chilly late December, and the sun had just started to dip below the horizon, while the receding light cascaded over the windows of the steel skyscrapers, making them shine like diamonds. Adam walked the snow-filled quad of the university as he headed towards the administration building. A cold wind blew across Adam, and he pulled his black winter coat tighter against his large frame. On days like this, he wondered why he decided to wear jeans instead of something warmer. Adam smiled widely as he sat down on a park bench despite the coldness of the night biting against his skin. His classes were finished for the year, and he'd completed his paperwork for the semester. Now he simply waited for his wife to finish her administrative duties, and the two would head home for the start of winter break. A pair of young blonde co-eds let out a small giggle that broke Adam out of his reverie. He glanced at them with emerald eyes, and the two girls blush and wave as they walk away faster. He shook his head. It wasn't an unusual thing for him. He was well over 6 feet tall, with slick jet black hair and a strong jaw. Despite this, everyone on campus knew he was devoted to his wife. He felt his cell phone vibrate. He dug through his pocket until he managed to fish it out and flipped it open. It displayed a single word from his wife. Done. Smiling, he closed the phone and ran his thumb over the word. Nokia, fondly before pocketing the phone. He stood up and stretched his arms out over his head before he heard a door open. He turned and saw a beautiful woman coming towards him. She was small, being a little over 5 feet tall, with a slim frame, with long flowing brown hair that reached the middle of her back. Like him, her eyes are a shade of emerald. They both had many playful arguments over the years, whose were darker or lighter, but her face was truly that of an angel with slender cheekbones and a soft jawline. Like him, she was wearing a heavy coat with a simple pair of jeans, along with a heavy jacket and brown knee-high boots. She walked through the snow and wrapped her arms around her husband and gave him a gentle kiss on the lips. The two stood there in their embrace for a few moments before they interlocked their arms and left as she rested her head on his shoulder. The two quietly exited the campus. They looked around at the bustling streets full of people as the sun dipped lower and the streetlights came on. Adam frowned a bit, despite all the convenience of the motor world. There were times he wished he could just shut them all down and see the stars in all their natural beauty. What's wrong, Adam? Nothing, Eve, he said as he leaned in and kissed her on top of her head. She snuggled closer to his body, and the two took off down the bustling streets of New York City. On a normal day, they would walk to the nearby subway station and take it to the spot near their apartment. Today, however, they decided that despite the coldness of the night, they would walk the dozen or so blocks home. The walk was quiet and peaceful. While they looked at the sights, they pointed at the various mom and pop shops. Some had opened recently, while some they remembered when the current owner's grandparents had first opened them many years ago. Another blast of cold wind blew over them. Adam laughed as Eve shrieked and moved her body closer to his as she tried to suck the warmth. At times like this, I swear God made you a succubus. Oh, at times like this, I swear God made you a succubus instead of a woman. Eve looked at him with a glare that almost made him wither. Almost. Well, excuse me for not asking God to have a built-in heater. Adam laughed loudly as he fondly rubbed her shoulder and pulled her in as tightly as he could. They had rounded a corner when a person in a red parka coat pushed their way through them. Adam turned, scowling at the person, but they were already heading down the street. Adam stared strangely at their back for a moment. Something about the person felt terribly familiar, but he couldn't place where from. Something wrong, love? Adam turned to see Eve's worried face. He flashed her a brilliant smile and pulled her back in close. Suddenly, the smell of fresh Cinnabons entered his nose. Adam looked down and saw that she had also smelled one of her favorite snacks. He saw the wanting look in her eyes and her lip tremble as she gave him the puppy eye look. He resigned himself to their fate as he led the way across the street to the bakery. Cheer up, my love. In a few days, we'll be opening presents and celebrating the heavenly birthday of our cousin. And after that, we'll be off to Europe to celebrate the new millennium. Adam smiled. I know, dear. But you do know that our coming back will depend on if the government followed our instructions about the Y2K program patches for the programs we anonymously gave them. Still, you're right. This is going to be our 8th millennium, and I'm just feeling... The words Adam was going to say are lost as a car runs a red stop lane, comes barreling straight at the two. Adam felt himself being pushed away from the out-of-control car. He turned to look at Eve, who only gave him a wide smile as the car slammed into her. Adam lost his balance and slammed his head hard against the side of a truck. He felt blood trickle down the side of his face. A wave of vertigo washed over him as he lost his balance, as the world spun in his eyes, and he fell to the ground hard. Adam felt himself slip further into darkness as his eyelids became too heavy to stay open, no matter how hard he tried. He craned his neck enough to see his wife's broken body as people ran toward them. He reached his hand out towards her to try and reach her, but in the end, all he could do was finally slip completely into darkness. While for the first time in centuries, he sent a prayer to his father. Please, save her. In a hospital gown, with his head wrapped in a bandage, Adam looked out the window at the city. He looked at his reflection in the window. His face showed heart-wrenching grief. The nurses who came in to check his vitals and see how he was doing didn't say much. They knew nothing they said would be helpful. After all, unless you've experienced it yourself, what can you possibly say to someone who just lost their wife so suddenly? Adam continued to stare out the window when he heard the faint clicking noise of a woman's heels on the tile floor. He knew it wasn't a nurse since they didn't wear heels. It was probably someone from hospital management offering their condolences. Normally, there would be a rush to get him out since his injuries were not that serious. However, he simply transferred a large amount of money to the hospital and told them he wanted to be left alone to contemplate. That was 3 days ago. The clicking of the heels was getting close to him. Adam frowned angrily and swore to himself that if it was another hospital manager offering sympathies, he'd finally lose what little control he had left. Hello, Adam. It's good to see you again after so many years. We need to talk. Adam's body stiffened. He knew that voice very well, despite not having heard it in a very long time. He turned and came face to face with her. She was beautiful with a face that would make an angel jealous, with bright blue eyes and long flowing black hair that reached the middle of her back. Her black business suit did little to hide curves her body possessed that made her the envy of any woman in the room. Still, despite towering over her smaller body, Adam was extremely cautious. He knew just how dangerous and cunning she could be. Hello, Lilith. Wow, what a great tension. What a great ending moment for that story. Let's see, I'm just pulling up here. I wanted to make sure that I'd gotten any. Okay, so you're just looking for any type of feedback. Yeah, so first off, what a really, really great tension, great ending point for the story. I wasn't expecting the wife to get plowed out of nowhere, and basically the wife is dead. So really it's about the husband's story of it's really a story of grief. But then you introduce Lilith, right? And Lilith, as we know, is a demonic character. So then we're like, okay, well, is this going to be like a supernatural type story? Or is this just this chick's name? This could go in a couple of different directions. I feel like we didn't get enough world building elements to really understand, like, okay, well, I don't know what type of world this is going to be, right? I think so far, from what we've seen so far, we're like, okay, this is the real world, and that's kind of everything that I know. Yep. So so far we know this is the real world, and my guess is we're probably dealing with the real world, and then we're getting a layer probably supernatural on top of it, would be my guess. Oh yeah, and you're like, Mary, like interesting. Adam, Eve, and Lilith. Oh yeah, I don't know why that went right over my head. You're like, you're right. Adam, Eve, and Lilith. You are absolutely right. With the two characters being Adam and Eve. I was like, duh. I told that was intentional. So overall, that was good. I think I would say that I think the biggest opportunities for it right now. So I think right now you could improve upon the world building a little bit, because I think like we know it's a real world, but if it's going to be like more of a supernatural story, I think we might want maybe a couple more references, even if, let's say, a real world supernatural under the surface, right? So then you could be talking about like, oh yeah, we were at the campus the other day and this weird thing happened, or they lived in a world where things were, or they lived in New York City where things were like ghosts came out at night, or people said ghosts came out at night, but those were just ghost stories. I think just some types of references to a supernatural type world, if that is the direction that the story's taking. So I think that will help set up the world a little bit more clearly, because up until you introduce Lilith, I thought this was all like real world, real story. But I mean, you said fantasy, so I'm like, okay, so technically this is fantasy world. So I think it's just setting up the world building a little bit better. The plot was interesting. I mean, the wife getting killed off, I wasn't expecting that so suddenly. So that was a good out of nowhere. And I think you define that moment. They're talking, and then he feels a push, and he turns and he sees that image of her. He sees her eyes one last time. And I think you painted that part clearly. I'm like, oh, that's, and like the moment that happened, I'm like, damn, she's gonna get killed by a car. And I'm like, oh, that was a good moment. That was, I would say that was my favorite part of this. Or actually my two favorite parts was the wife death scene, because that was done well. And then the Lilith tension. I'm like, oh, what? Lilith? Now I want to read more. So that was good. I like that. So yeah, and I think structure wise, I mean, I think you could probably cut out a little bit of the intro, a little bit of the beginning. And I mean, I guess once again, like this was a prologue. So technically this takes place before the story. So, and this is always the question with prologues of like, why do a prologue? Essentially, it's because we need to set up, the reader needs to know something that takes place before the story starts. So technically the story hasn't even started yet, which means that it's probably the core story of Adam dealing with his grief, or dealing with Lilith, this crazy demon of nature. So that sounds like that's probably what the story's going to be about. So let's hop into it. I could tell the writers in the chat were enjoying it as well. All right. Calgary, like not exactly. So like, okay, so I mean that's just a guess. I'd be curious to see what the character progression is. Maybe it's that it's going to be Adam's going on a journey somewhere, and that the death of the wife. I mean, technically the wife death is the first plot point, but once again it's prologue, so it's really technically not part of the story. It's kind of like setup, which means that maybe it's a journey, something with him and Lilith. Like Lilith wasn't a demon; she was independent, I think. Yeah, I don't really know enough about Lilith's backstory, but clearly something otherworldly might be happening here. I'm not sure, but granted, we're assuming based on Lilith. So let me look that up really quick because I'm actually kind of curious. Lilith. Let's see. Lilith is a feminine figure in Mesopotamian and Jewish mythology, theorized to be the first wife of Adam and a primordial she-demon. Lilith is cited as having been banished from the Garden of Eden for not complying with and obeying Adam. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, just based on quick Wikipedia, the quick Wikipedia just says some type of demon possibly, but I totally get that tie-in now with Adam, Eve, and Lilith. Yeah, like it's overly complicated. I'm not even sure if I want to keep this. It's more important for later on in the story. Okay, that could totally make sense. Yep, she was Adam's first wife, Mary. Yeah, you're like she was Adam's first wife. That totally makes sense. Okay, so let's go into, and I think Calvin's something to think about, like whether or not you're keeping it or not. I think you want to ask yourself what is the point of the prologue, and how's this going to serve the story? And you're like, okay, well, this is something the reader needs to know later on. Then maybe the prologue might not be that important. Especially if it's not really setting up the character journey. And I mean, generally in fantasy stories, the prologue will tend to do like world building setup generally. If the point of this, because I mean, let's think about what we're learning in this prologue. We're learning about basically the wife's death. We learn that he's a professor, and that the wife died, and that something's happening with Lilith. Those are really the three things we learn, which are really all plot points. And I wouldn't say it's a little less world building. So then it makes me question, like, okay, well, are those plot points really necessary in the beginning? You're like, I still want the scene, but I'm not sure if it got probative value right now. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think without knowing more of the story, it's hard to say, but I think that's always the challenge with prologues, right? I think prologues is always the thing that the part that's in question. So let's see. So going into the manuscript itself, let's see. Okay, so I mean, this like the thing with the setup is, let's see, and then the thing with this setup, you're like, it was a chilly late December, and the sun had just started to dip below the horizon. The receding light cascaded over the windows of the steel skyscrapers. Yeah, so I mean, I think the only thing with this setup is that the setup itself is like it's important because you're setting up the character, but it just wasn't. It was just kind of I don't know. Like, I don't think this introductory paragraph did too much for me, because I think all we're setting up is it's late December. Adam is at a university and it's snowing. I was actually I was pulled into it a little bit more with the blonde co-ed thing. And I think because this is an action and less exposition and just the world, but I mean, the world setup is important. But yeah, just for me personally, the opening paragraph just didn't do anything for me. I think it's just because it's like, okay, it's not anything that's like, it's not any like crazy information. But yeah, that's just kind of a subjective thing. I liked the co-ed thing because it's something that's happening. You're like, oh, okay, but he's devoted to his wife. That's interesting. The cell phone is good. He displayed a single word from his wife. Done. By the way, I think no, this could be a personal style. It displayed a single word from his wife. Done. Because this is a text message. He dug through his phone to and flipped it out. It displayed a single word from his wife. Done. Texting is generally done different. I don't know if I would use quotation marks for this or not. Subjective. It could be Calvin. I would just say just make sure to look up like how writers format text. Because this could easily be confused for him, like, oh, he's saying done under his breath. Smilingly closed the phone and ran his thumb over the word Nokia, or maybe he said Nokia under his breath. So I might just consider replacing the quotation marks and maybe doing something like italics instead, or framing it as like text, like done, something like that. There's many different ways you could format. I would just, yeah, that would be my suggestion. For dealing with text messaging or basically calling out words. And like I know you can. There are times writers will use quotation marks for emphasis. That's a thing. I think I always try to move away from quotation marks as emphasis personally. So that way, because we readers are so programmed to think quotation marks, someone is speaking. So then if you use the quotation mark for an emphasis, my question is like, well, why not just use italics? So, but that's something that comes to mind. Yep. And then we're setting up the wife, which is good. Yeah, I like that. So I like the wife. I think the only thing with this is like, let's make this its own paragraph. Yeah, I would say let's make this its own paragraph because we want the focus on the wife setup to be its own thing. He turned and saw a beautiful woman coming towards him. She was small, being a little over 5 feet tall with a slim frame. Yep. Reached the middle of the back. This is all good. Like him, her eyes are a shade of emerald, both are mini. Yep. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is good, and I mean, I think even in her description, I think if you could find a way to shorten this, it would be good. But overall, we're getting the point across of who she is, which is important. Well, I mean, it's important to this moment, um, and I mean, I guess if her grief or if his grief over her is important throughout the story, then keep it as is. But I mean, because this is the prologue, and since she dies in the next scene, she's not really relevant to the story unless she's gonna like come back as like a ghost or something, or she's gonna be important. So something to keep in mind. If she's such a small thing, I mean, unless she's important for his character building, you just wouldn't really need to spend so much time on her since she's about to die anyways. Roger about the quote. Like, you apologize about the roughness of this. Oh yeah, totally. You're all good, my friend. We get rough drafts in here all the time. Totally no worries at all. Let's see. I would say yeah, but you said this is yeah. So this is going to be a novel. This is the first draft of a novel. Totally all good. Totally all good, my friend. So let's see. The two quietly exited the campus. Adam frowned a bit. Despite all the convenience of the mod. Oh, this was modern. I was like, okay, this is just missing an N. Adam frowned a bit despite all the convenience of the modern world. There were times he wished he could just shut them all down. Yeah, and I mean, I think with where it's at as a rough draft, I think it's fine. I think then like the next draft, what you do is then you just end up cutting down on wordiness, which is as you guys have seen when I'm working on Scarecrow, I do the same exact thing. Yeah, like my largest hang up. Is she wearing a heavy coat and heavy jacket? Is nothing zipped up? How do I know? I know small details, but I focused on that. Yeah, and it's once again, it's these things that we're writing when we're trying to describe it, and then we don't notice it until we go back over it. That's happened with me so many times in Scarecrow. So this is all like really common stuff to see when reviewing a first draft. Yeah, so I mean, you're setting up why they're going to go on a walk, which is good. And I was just saying here on this first dialogue, clarify who's speaking. Because I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure until I got to the end of this. You know, at times like this, I swear God made you a succubus instead of a woman. So this part was clear, and I think I would just set up here so that you're not leaving the reader guessing. Adam laughed. Adam smiled and said, "You know, at times like this, I swear God made you a succubus instead of a woman." I think I would do a speech tag this time, since it's really the first time that he's talking to her. And then by here, this is clear, right? Because now we know Eve's going to respond. Adam laughed as he fondly rubbed her shoulder. And I thought this was actually a really cute moment. I loved this dialogue. This was perfect. This was perfect. Loved this opening moment. You get this flirty cutiness from them, which is really awesome. When Parka lady pushes past them, it might. I think this is my guess is this is Lilith. This might be Lilith, or maybe this is another character that's introduced. When Adam is watching her walk away, Adam turns scowling at the person, but they were already heading down the street. He watched her red puffy parka was a her red puffy parka stood out as she disappeared around the corner. I think I would just again reiterate what it is about her, because obviously you're pointing attention. Something about her was familiar, but what was it that was familiar about her? Was it the parka? Was it, oh, I thought it was her face that I thought I recognized? Yeah, so I think this would just be something good to think about. I think I want to understand what it is about her that was terribly familiar, right? Was it like, okay, was it the face? Was it the parka? Was it her hair? I think helping clarify that would be helpful, because then it's supposed to be her aura. Okay, so something about her aura, so something about her disposition. Adam stared at the back for a moment. Something about the person felt terribly familiar. Something about her aura felt terribly familiar. I think the only thing with that is then how do you define aura? So let's just, I'm just going to Google that aura definition. So aura, this distinctive atmospheric quality that seems to surround and be generated by a person, thing, or place. Yep. So it's basically like a person's like energy. Atmosphere. Yeah, so then I'm thinking about how you distinguish that. And then, I mean, that has to be from the combination of what the girl looks like and what she's wearing. And then that combined with her body posture and the way she walks. It has to be all these things that go into her aura or her disposition, right? And I actually like that. I actually thought this was interesting because I thought this was a good, what's the word? This was a good a twist moment where we think, oh, something's about to happen with this chick, and maybe he's gonna go chase after her. This was actually a really good moment here. I really liked that. Like, yeah, it's supposed to be her aura, a feeling. Yeah, oh yeah, I think that would be really smart. I think that actually be really, really smart. Using smell. I think smell as he like he sniffed the air he sniffed the air, a distinct floral perfume jogged his memories. Something about her felt terribly familiar. Right? I think that'd be really good. He craned his neck as he looked at the red parka that disappeared around a corner in the distance. I think that would be good. Yeah, I mean, you could go the deja vu route as well. Deja vu would be another direction to take it in. Absolutely. Once again, this was so cute. The smell of fresh Cinnabons. Yeah, this is so cute. The smell of fresh Cinnabons. Love that. This is interesting. So this is kind of like world building. I think my only thing with this was I didn't understand what this meant as a reader, but because it's so early in the story, this could just be world building. So it's actually not like important for the reader to understand it. And obviously I know some of the terminology, like I know, dear, but you do know that our coming back will depend on the government followed will depend on if the government followed our instructions about the Y2K program patches. Like, what is a Y2K program patch? Yeah, I just don't know what that is for the programs, but that's probably something that's about the world. We anonymously gave them. Still, you're right. This is going to be our 8th millennium, which I imagine this is supposed to be 8th. Still, you're right. This is going to be our 8th millennium, and I'm just feeling. Yeah, and I think. Yeah. But I mean, this could be. I think you said this takes place in 1999, right? It's right before the new millennium. Yeah, well, which that makes sense. Oh, that totally makes sense. That's why you mentioned That's why you mentioned the Nokia phone. That actually totally makes sense because you wanted to ground it in the year 1999. You know what, Calvin? I actually totally missed that. Now that I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's right, Nokia phone, 1999. That makes sense. And I think Y2K. Okay, so you're basically using this, and then you use the phone as well to ground that it is the year 1999. I would Rule of threes, you guys know my favorite. I would find another reference to reference that it's 1999. The only reason this threw me off is because I don't know what Y2K program patches are. So I got focused on this when in reality, I should be focused on the Y2K. Our 8th millennium. Still, you're right. This is going to be our 8th millennium. And I'm just feeling. So it's like, have they lived through 8 millenniums? And I think the wording of this threw me off a little bit. So I'm like, okay, so is this like a supernatural world? Like they've lived through 8 millenniums? But no, like I think it's just the wording of it. So I would just rephrase. This. But immediately this is lost anyways, which is fine because then we get into the red light. And I was like, oh shit, I wasn't expecting the out of car I was expecting the death, which I love. You turn to look at Eve, and they gave him a wide smile as the car slammed into her. Oh, so heartbreaking. I was like, I love that. This was a really great moment. And I thought it was really beautiful that he tried to reach out to her. And he sent the prayer to his father, please save her. I like this. This was perfect. This was a great transition. This was actually a really great transition, Calvin. It's actually really hard for writers to be able to pull off transitions using dialogue. This was a very, very good transition. It was clear, right? Accident, send a prayer, please save her. In a hospital ground, and I think this transition works. It's difficult sometimes for writers to be able to transition without doing like a scene break, but I think this was done well. Good job. Let's see. Adam continue to start the window, and then we're in the hospital. It was 3 days ago. This is all good. He's basically wants to be left alone. And then we get Lilith's introduction. Hello, Lilith. Good ending, good tension point. So yeah, really, really good. I think this would, once again, I think this story has some really great moments. And I'm definitely really curious to see how the story goes. And like, maybe if you have time, we can talk and get a better idea. Yeah, I'd love to, my friend. I'll totally I'll message you and we can set something up. That'd be really awesome. I'm intrigued by the story because essentially since I mean, I love fantasy. So I mean, this is a fantasy story. So I'm really intrigued. And I think because this is the prologue, we just don't have any indication yet of what the story is about, which is fine. You don't need to know that by the end of the prologue. So I'm intrigued because I love the use of Adam, Eve, and Lilith. I think that type of story, I love that vibe. I'm curious to see what types of directions you're going to take it in, especially because it's 1999 and there's the world. It's very important that it's not the new millennium yet. So because you're setting it in 1999, that makes me think like, okay, something about changing into the new millennium has to be an important aspect in the world of the story. Yeah, that would actually be a good idea as well. Maybe try to set the time with the famous news event, mention the current president. That would be another way you could go, right? Like as he's looking at the Nokia phone, he turns it over and he sees, wait, who was the president in 1999? I'm like, I was like, yeah, that president 1999. We were still Clinton. I think that would be another thing as well. That would be an easier way to set it up. Mention Clinton. What president was in office? 93 to 2001. So 99 was right near the end of his term. So you could always reference that. That's not a bad idea. Or you could reference pop culture if you don't want to do politics. You could do so many things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could understand that, Courtney. Like, as someone who hates being cold, I was confused why they would choose to walk on such a cold day. But I think because of the cuteness of the moment, I think they kind of just like want to go on this like frivolous adventure. But I think, Calvin, this is a good note. Like, if it is so cold, why walk? Maybe they just want to walk to get Cinnabons, right? Maybe Calvin, you play a little bit more into that, like the cuteness of like, hey, I just want to go on an adventure. He's like, yeah, it's cold. I just want to take the bus or I just want to take the subway. And she's like, you promised me Cinnabons. You could do something like that and make it a little cutesier if you wanted to. Yeah, I thought about that. That's actually what I was thinking about as well. If you do Bill Clinton, you could do the Monica Lewinsky thing. You could totally do that. I mean, especially if he's out of college, then you'd think of he would probably be aware of world news. And since you do that with the Nokia phone anyways, or maybe you could have those two blonde girls passing by and he overhears their conversation. He's like, oh, the two beautiful blonde girls. One of them's like, oh, did you hear what happened with Bill Clinton and did you hear what happened with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton? And like you could do that, like you could catch like mid conversation. That would be another way to go about it. That could work as well. Cinnabon is a West Coast based chain, and there isn't a lot of information on when they opened in New York. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. There, I used to get them all the time. They're in New Jersey. Yeah, I mean they're definitely there. So I think this is just a good note. I would just look when was Cinnabon established. So, because especially if it's 1999, I think you want to make sure that Cinnabon was an established retailer in the year 1999. And that's so like things like that, like they're really minor things, but like Courtney said, like readers will call that type of thing out if like Cinnabon wasn't established yet. Absolutely. So something to think about. Awesome. Once again, Calvin, I'm really intrigued by the story. I would love to talk about it. I think it's a really interesting start. Generally with prologues, I generally can't give recommendations on whether or not I think the prologue is effective or not unless I go through a whole story. Simply because the prologue's really not part of the story. It's generally used for world building and world setting or telling readers about other things. So, but yeah, overall, good start so far, my friend. Good start. Despite, like you said, even though it's a first draft, I think this is exactly where it should be in the process that you're at. So then I imagine that then the next draft of it, you're probably going to start like cleaning up on wordiness. You'll probably start cleaning up some of those like minor things like the Cinnabon, the smell, some of the world building. Absolutely. So yeah, we need to talk. I'll send you a message, Calvin. Definitely looking forward to it, and we'll set something up, my friend. Excellent. Let's see. Looks like we have some East Coasters over here. East Coaster, wonderful. Yeah, love. Actually, I'm curious where in the world is everyone? Where are you coming from in the world? I'm over in Idaho. Idaho is where I've been at, but I was a California native. I would love to hear where in the world are you coming from? All right, beautiful. I was like Virginia. I was like Idaho. I do miss my California a little bit, but I'm pretty sure most of our community is like a mix across the U.S. We also have some. We also have some from Canada. We have some UK as well, or more Europe, not just UK, but Europe. Let's see. I think we have a few Australia. Not sure if we got South America or not. Yeah, so we kind of got, I think we're pretty spread out across the states though. Like we got Kentucky, Texas, Washington, but hoping to move back to the East Coast. Yeah, I was like, I think we have like a good mix. A good mix across the US, which is what I kind of like actually. It's kind of crazy like being online, like I feel like I'm used to my own time zone, but I get to meet friends from all around the states. Hey, welcome. By the way, welcome, Martha. Saw you hop into the stream. Gwenna, welcome. Hello, new friends. Atlanta native, living in Phoenix. Welcome. I've never been to Atlanta or Phoenix. Granted, I haven't really traveled too much. I mean, I've traveled most of the West Coast states, which is where I've been most of my life. So, like, I'm very familiar with most of the coastal states, but I haven't been central US. Haven't explored too much. And then East Coast, I've only explored a couple states. Yep, got another Texas over here. Absolutely, another great one. We got Texas. We also like greatest place in the U.S. like representing Texas, and then Georgia. Yeah, once again, so we have like a healthy mix of writers from all around the states, which I absolutely love. That's very cool. And awesome. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hop into our next story. And let's see, what do we got next? We're going to be hopping into our next story reading. Once again, Calvin, thank you again for submitting that. That was a great little story. We're actually going to be hopping into a fan fiction next. So my bad, we're going to be hopping into yours, Toga Rehabilitation, which is a fan fiction. And make sure while I'm setting that up, if you want to submit your story, if you want a free live reading and a critique, submit now. The submission link is pinned at the top of the chat. It's also linked down in the YouTube description. So go submit if you want feedback on your story. And even if I don't get to it today, it gets queued up on following streams. The Story and Critique show is every other Saturday. So definitely go submit. And yeah, so let's do that. And if you're enjoying the stream, follow and subscribe. We're here every day with the Right Now community. 380 consecutive writing streams and counting, and we are not stopping anytime soon. So if you're looking for like a daily writing community, if you're ever feeling unmotivated, and like, let's be real, guys, like the writing process, it takes time. And there's times where it's great, there's times where it's a struggle. If you want a community of writers from all different genres, all different backgrounds, and like, we'll be here every day, 380 streams to prove it, and we're not going to stop anytime soon. So we always got a lot going on. Make sure to tap that follow and subscribe button, and you'll be alerted when we go live. All right, wonderful, wonderful. And like the stream. Yes, woo, like the stream. Help the algorithm show us that the writing streams are awesome. Awesome. I saw that as well, my bad. We'll go through that, which I actually like that. And I think that'll help set up the reader a little bit as well. You're like, my bad. What fandom is this story based in? Yeah. Also, thank you everyone for submitting your stories. Once again, I love reading the different stories. I really do. Earlier, I had posed a question of what value do you get out of the story and critique show? Today's the 34th episode. So we've done 33 of these. Generally on these critique streams, I read anywhere between 4 to 8 stories, depending on my voice and the types of stories involved. So, I mean, what? 33 streams and we'll just say average of 5. Yeah, I mean, so we've done at least 160 to 180 story excerpts so far in this stream, which is super cool. And okay, my bad. You said so it's a fan fiction based on My Hero Academia. So, and just to know, I always have to tell people this with fan fictions. If I have not read, if I'm not familiar with the world, my feedback isn't going to be able to be as effective. I can still give feedback for fan fictions based on storytelling elements, but I realized this, I want to say this must have been about 10 streams ago or 10 critique shows ago. I just won't be as effective because I don't know the canon and I don't know the world. I've heard of My Hero Academia, but I've never actually seen the show, and I'm just not too familiar with the storyline of it. So, I mean, I put that as a note for fan fiction. Awesome. So, let's do this. I got it queued up here. All right. Perfecto. Wonderful. All right. So I got this all set up. I think I'm good on my end. Okay. So this is called Toga Rehabilitation. Now, before we get into the chapter, I know my bad, share just kind of some ground setting so that way we know what happened in the first 2 chapters, which I think is this first. Yeah, so that's just this part. So the chapter is not super long. So this is just going to be a little setup for what chapters 1 and 2 are about. I'm just going to go through this real quick so we kind of have an idea. Essentially what's happened so far, the main character, Himiko, was a villain that had a realization about herself after seeing the hero's students perform a concert for their school festival. She wanted to be a hero, but her quirk, superpower, is considered villainous by most of society. It's a quirk that made it so the user could shapeshift into someone. She didn't realize until recently that her quirk was sentient. Toga. Oh, that's interesting. The teacher, Aizawa, that teaches the class that performed, found Himiko crying in an alleyway, but instead of arresting her, who in the past attacked his class, took the chance and adopted her. The principal, Nedzu, of the school, UA, the top hero school, Aizawa worked for, and the government that's meant to protect the public and heroes, which is really a corrupt government, agreed to let Himiko to learn at UA, the school, under the condition she wears a wristband that notifies Aizawa first and then everyone else that is important where she is and if her quirk activates. Last chapter had the wristband practically explode with about 50 notifications of Himiko intaking someone else's blood. And so now the government that let her learn at UA wants to put her in prison. Wow. That's all. Wow, you've covered a lot of ground so far. First off, good for you. That's awesome. That's a really strong start to this book so far if you've already covered that much plot in 2 chapters. So I just want to iterate with that. That's actually really, really cool. And then let me just pull up your submission, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, yep. So this is a novel, and this is the first draft still. So you're still working on the first draft. So we always take that into consideration. We're in an early draft of the story. Okay, cool. So I think we're good there. 1,700 words. So this is going to be chapter 3, and that's the setup. Like my hero, you're like, this chapter is more grounded in reality than most. Awesome. The quirk requires blood. I forgot to say that. Okay. And then I'm assuming like a quirk is like a magic ability of some type. Yeah, right. But their school. She wanted to be a superhero, but her quirk, superpower. Yeah, okay, gotcha. Quirk is a superpower. Okay, but her quirk is considered villainous. Perfect. Awesome. And her quirk involves blood. So that's actually good to know. All right. Let's do it. Was such a crowd necessary, Nedzu? Madame President says to the rodent bear hybrid as the two stand in front of the commission board's desk. Nedzu just smiles with the same face he usually does. I asked if I was allowed to those that I felt would be helpful for discussing the placement of Toga Himoko. You assured me I was. Yes, however, I did not mean a third of your staff were needed, Madame President says, looking behind Nedzu. I would argue that if it was needed, each one of them has interacted with Himiko and have their own opinions about her. Nedzu says, motioning to the. I'm sure they will provide reasons why she should stay at UA instead of a prison no promising young human deserves to be in. Madam President raised an eyebrow. And this group includes Ochako Uraka. And this group includes Ochako Uraka. I figured you'd want to meet the person whose blood I consumed and get their opinion on me and what I did, Madam President, Himiko says from her seat. This was the 4th time she was in this office. However, that didn't mean she was comfortable here. In fact, she's more nervous today than she was when first coming here. She glances over to Ochako, seeing how she thumbs the dozen index cards she's prepared. When Himiko first asked Ochako, she seemed nervous, but still wanting to help. Ochako didn't even have an appropriate outfit for the occasion, so Himiko got her a suit, and that was a good idea, especially to Himiko. Madam President's face changes because of Himiko's words. How kind of you. Every time she talks to Himiko, she has this tone of demeaning distaste. Shall we start, Madam President? Nedzu says in his normally chipper tone, although anyone who had known him longer than a few days could tell there's more to it. He turns around and walks back to his seat. Of course, Madam President walks back to her own seat behind the giant desk against the back wall. Her eyes glance to the 2 HPSC members right under her before sitting in her seat. She looks toward the group of UA staff and students. Let's begin with the trial of Toga Himiko. I would like to speak first. So Sekijiro Kan stands up from his seat. He moves around the table he and Nedzu were sitting and walks to the podium middle of the room. As you know, I have a similar quirk to Toga Himiko in that I, myself, have a quirk that requires blood. This, of course, lends my experiences to those of the young Himiko. He motions towards the student in question. Madam President shifts back in her seat. The difference is your quirk doesn't require injuring others. Toga Himiko's quirk requires another's blood, while yours only requires your own. The requirement of someone else's blood, combined with the ability to transform into the person whose blood she ingests, makes her dangerous. If she manages to transform into someone like Ochako Uraka without the technology that we provided to make sure she won't, we wouldn't be able to tell. Madam President leans forward with her hands together in front of her. Can you see the problem? As she was a villain, how do we know she won't go back to her previous ways? I allowed her to attend UA because I was sure you could control her villainous tendencies, but that was shown to be false. Madam President, I understand why you assume the villainous tendencies she once had are more prevalent than you'd like. However, please remember that it has only been 2 weeks. I know that you want them gone as soon as possible, but this takes time. Sekijiro stands up straighter. To continue my point, I know I received a better hand than most with quirks that are considered villainous, and even still, I received and still do receive hate just for something I wasn't able to control. I was a visibly strong boy and could visibly hold my own. Sekijiro shows a picture of him when he was young. It's a picture of a good-looking boy that obviously works out frequently. The 4 years I scraped by before running away were horrible. The only one even like me was Monama. Himiko thought back to that time. She didn't understand the fear her parents had of her. I understand how people don't just give in to the want to drink others' blood. They don't have it. I wish you knew that back then. That doesn't change the fact we need blood, Toga thinks in response. I was told to just be a villain and give up on my dream. I was told to just be a villain and give up on my dream to be a hero. I was told to kill myself just for my quirk. Now imagine how a young girl would be treated. Even now, when she is clearly strong, clearly able to hold her own, she still visually looks weak. I imagine her experiences are far worse than mine were. Imagine how you would react to being judged for what your quirk is. Sekijiro lets his words set in for a few seconds. A quirk is not evil or good. A person is not evil or good. It's the actions and experiences that cause someone to act out. I know that if I was not accepted into UA, I would be a villain today. Please remember that she, herself, is not evil for the rest of the session. Sekijiro bows. Madam President nods and glances at the other next to her. So, you're suggesting we absolve her of all her crimes just for how she may have been treated? If we do what you suggest for every villain, we'd have chaos. I'm not suggesting to absolve her crimes immediately. However, I am suggesting to put prejudice aside. Sekijiro bows again. I'll let my coworker speak. Please do the same. He walks back to his seat and sits down. Madam President mumbles something, pinching the bridge of her nose. She sighs and looks directly at Ochako. I want to hear from Ochako Uraka. Ochako tenses as her name is called before she stands and walks to where Vlad stood. As you heard Himiko say before, I'm the one that Himiko bit. I'm here to give my viewpoint of what happened. She puts her cards down on the podium, but the cards slide off the ground. She scrambles to pick them up before standing back up, jogging the papers into alignment again, taking a deep breath. I'll be going over what happened prior to Himiko drinking my blood. Starting at the beginning of the training that day, we were informed that we'd be doing a rescue and subdue mission. Himiko looked worried, so I asked her if she was okay, and she was just a little worried about not being able to train her quirk. She followed that by telling me I didn't have to be her friend and warning me that the blood of friends is more potent for her quirk. I'm glad she made sure we were okay with that, Toga thinks, shifting in her seat. I should have told her we're supposed to use full names. She asked her classmate, Yaoyoruzu, to make her a meteor knife, a rope that's twice as long as the user's wingspan with a 3-kilo ball on one end and a 3-kilo knife on the other end. Ochako goes to the next index card. Yaoyoruzu gave her one after an explosion went off in one of the fall buildings that were in front of us. A few of our classmates put the fire out, which was followed by another classmate warning our group that someone was coming. Himiko was the first to jump to action, correctly predicting where the fall villain, third-year Nejire Hado, would go, and threw the blunt end to try and capture her, but failed as the villain caught the rope, throwing Himiko to the ground. She goes to the next card before jogging them to alignment again. Himiko told us to focus on taking out the villain instead of helping her. After another villain, Nejiro Hado's classmate, Tamaki Yamajiki, and said things not relevant at the moment. Nejiro Hado spun to attack the other group of our class, which was the rescue group, taking her eyes off Himiko, which allowed Himiko to wrap the blunt end of the meteor knife around Nejiro Hado's ankle. Nejiro was slammed to the ground in a way similar to how Himiko was, before being restrained by Himiko and her classmate Siro. Siro said that in the minute following, it seemed Himiko went through a range of emotions, including hunger, fear, anger, and more. I tried to move closer, but the moment I was close enough to touch her, she ran away in tears, followed shortly by Mr. Aizawa, stopping the training because he was worried for Himiko. Madam President stops her by raising her hand. How is any of this needed? This could have been cut to when the action we're here for happened. I assumed that some background was needed, Ochako says, jogging the index cards again. I'm about to get to Himiko drinking my blood. A sigh escapes Madam President as she pinches the bridge of her nose before signaling with a hand wave to continue. After a few seconds, I ran after her, hoping to comfort her, following with growing distance through the alleyways before she went into one of the buildings, slamming the door behind her. As I got closer, I slowed to a jog and then a walk. Ochako glances towards Himiko before looking back at Madam President. I knocked on the door and she asked me if I should be finishing the exercise. I told her that Mr. Aizawa had called it off, and she sounded sorry about causing the exercise to end early. She refused when I asked to enter the building because she was scared she would hurt me. I reassured her that I believe she's doing her best to be good, and she let me in. Oh, and end of chapter. Awesome. So first off, thank you so much for submitting that. I was trying to understand, I think, and this is always the thing with fan fiction. So I was trying to understand if there's moments where I'm feeling lost, if it's because I don't understand the world, or if it's because there's something in the writing. I think because there were some world elements that I didn't understand, but I think something that was cool, I like the idea of Toga. I think my favorite parts of this, I like the Toga character. It's kind of like this voiceless, it's like a voiceless sentient being, which is super cool. I always love that dynamic is always super fun. I like her quirk. I think we have some very different personalities in this, which is super cool. We have the Madam President. We have, Sekijiro seems to try to be on her side. And then we have, of course, our main character, Himiko, right? Himiko's cool. And I think we actually did get a lot of character building for Himiko, which was interesting. Yeah, so I would say I think the things that are working for this right now, which is really good, I think we're getting a lot of character development, which is awesome. I think right now the strongest part of this is the character development. I think the thing that's probably the weakest part of it, I would say, probably maybe a cross between the plot and the structure. There's a lot of exposition that you're trying to cover in the dialogue, and well, that can work. I think there's just some opportunities to maybe add some more actions. And granted, I don't know how the last chapters were written, but if you're covering ground, if you're covering things that you've already shared with the reader, then you're not going to want to recap things. But my guess is you probably just did the Himiko explosion and maybe we didn't get the background. Then this information is relevant. So this is just something to think about. And I think it's just kind of cutting down on some of the wordiness of the dialogue. It's just wordy, right? And the only way we cut down on wordiness is we break it up with action and interiority. Yeah, and I kind of got that as well. I like the court vibe of it. I actually thought that was really interesting dynamic of it. Yeah. Okay. So let's go through it. I would say let's hop into the different elements of it because there were some things that I liked that worked really well for it. Nope. Let's go here. All right. So was such a crowd necessary, Nedzu? I think my favorite character was I kind of like Madam President the most. She kind of had this like she's kind of like this vibe, and it's like she's like in charge, but she is like kind of has an attitude. I actually really like Madam President a lot. I think she was my favorite character in the scene. So Nedzu is a rodent bear hybrid. That's kind of cool, actually. Yeah, that's kind of a cool a rodent bear hybrid. That's super cool. Nedzu just smiles. To those. Oh, and I just got lost in this dialogue. I think you just missed a word. I asked if I was allowed to those that I felt would be helpful for discussing the placement of Toga. I asked if I was allowed to those. I would just rephrase this specific sentence. I just wasn't sure what you were getting. My guess is Netsu saying that he was allowed to lead or teach, or maybe allowed to place to do like placement. So I would just clean up this sentence to make it clearer. Yes. However, I did not mean a third of your staff were needed. I think that was funny. I like that. I liked her response. Let's see. And as it says, and I like this. So what's working well for this is you're setting up what we're about to explore with this kind of little courtroom scene, which is kind of cool. And you can kind of see, right? Nedzi is like arguing for her. Madam President, you can tell, just like does not. Madam President, not a fan. Like I missed a few words. I type slower than my brain goes. That happens to the best of us. Totally no worries. Like you said, this is a rough draft, so it's not surprising. This is like very common for a rough draft. Let's see. I would argue that it was needed. Each one of them is interacted. Yep, but Madam President raised an eyebrow. This group includes Ochako or Uraka. I don't know why I kept wanting to say Urakura. Uraka. Ochako. I figured you want to meet the person who's but I consume to get their opinion on me. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because then we're kind of setting up Ochako as kind of like seems like a character. Hmm. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I mean, Toga is kind of a cool as well, but there's just not very much screen time with Toga, which I don't think's a problem. But yeah, I think from a character development, Madam President is the strongest in this specific chapter. Ochako's interesting, and it's like, and I know we get Ochako in a bit. So there's something about Ochako where Madam President clearly like this points the reader and thinks, oh, okay, something interesting about this character. Let's say, I figured you want whose blood I consumed and get their opinion on me and what I did, Madam President. So because what I would suggest, because right now it's just been talking between Madam President and Nedzu, the reader is going to assume that this is Nedzu talking. And then I got confused for a second. And then I got to the end. I'm like, Himiko says, okay. In this instance, I would have add the speech tag before, since we're changing Himiko from her seat. Himiko spoke up. I figured so that way it's just clear, so you don't chance losing the reader. And I would go like this, and that's kind of how I would go about that. So, but that's just a recommendation. Let's say I figured you want to meet the person whose blood I consumed and get their opinion on me and what I did, Madam President. Himika says from her seat, this is the fourth time she was in this office, however. I like that. I like the setup of Ochako, of like Ochako we tells like, actually I think Ochako's character is actually really interesting as well. I actually like Ochako, and I actually think I got a really good sense of her. I think the only problem with Ochako is her dialogue is just too wordy. I think her dialogue just has to be cut down by about half. But her character is actually really intriguing to me, because you set this up with Madam President here of something about Ochako, but we don't know what. And now we get Ochako's character when she starts explaining everything. So I think like, okay, so Ochako's kind of like this like nervous, really nervous, stuttering, not lack of confidence. And the fact that our main character Himiko had to get Ochako's suit is actually kind of like, that's cool. I like that dynamic. Okay, that makes sense. Uraka is Himiko's classmate in this, and so Madam is focused on the only other student. Okay, that makes sense. I like this so much. Madam President's face changes because of Himiko's words. How kind of you. Every time she talks to Himiko, she has this tone of demeaning distaste, which I love. This is great. Once again, another reason why I like Madam President, because you're giving us like a good like visualization and good details about this character, which I love. When you have Nedzu, something I would recommend is, so Nedzu is like a hybrid character. And this could just be me because I'm not too familiar with the world, but I would include a little character. I would include a little description about Nedzu when give me a little action for his character, because you said he's what, like a rodent bear hybrid. Nedzu said it's a normally chipper tone, although anyone who has known him longer than a few days could tell there's more to it. He turns, sniffs the air, and gets onto his hairy hind legs as he walks back to his seat. I would just give a couple more things to remind the reader that he's this bear rodent creature, right? Just so the reader doesn't forget that he's kind of a human, because the rest of them are all humans in this room, I think, but he is some like type of like hybrid creature. So I would include some things like that to just help continue to cement the fact that he's I think the only hybrid in the room. Yeah, so that definitely comes across, right? Ochako's nervousness definitely comes across very well. Hey, what's up, Heavy? I saw you hop in here. Yeah, so I think Sekijiro was good. I would like to speak first. I think his dialogue is a little clearer because this is like direct and to the point. Emotions towards the student in question, shifts back in her seat. The difference is your quirk doesn't require Toga. Emika's quirk requires another's blood, while yours only requires your own. Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. I mean, in Madam President's opening thing here, you could cut down her dialogue just a little bit. It's just a little wordy. Like the difference is your quirk doesn't require injuring others. This section here with Madam President kind of feels like it's the narrator trying to tell the reader information, but Madam President I don't think like really needs to reiterate this, since all the characters kind of know. If there's I would almost like, I think this moment could almost be better served if you either reduce this, if you can like shorten this part, or if you have what's his face, who she's talking with, Sekijiro kind of like argue back with her. But like, well, her thing, Sekijiro stands like, okay, well, hers requires blood and so on and so forth. So I think you could clean that up just a little bit. You're saying, oh, Nedzu is like a 3-foot tall, hyper intelligent animal, and the rodent bear thing is something he jokes about. Oh, that's kind of cool. Then you should have Nedzu joke in this chapter. Like and one thing I know for fan fiction, anytime you can make references to canon, readers love that so much, as we all love, right? We love being able to interweave the canon elements with our own variations. Yeah, so you should have him make a joke in the beginning then, or have him say something that references his something that's always said about him in canon. That would be a really good idea for Nedzu. Let's say she was a villain. I allowed her. Yep, Madam President, I understand why you assume. And I like this. This is actually a good transition here. It's a picture of a good boy. It's like I can totally get that. Like he starts showing the picture of the boy, and then we turn back to Himiko. Okay, so this is from a structuring perspective. So Toga is a sentient being, right? So Toga is a sentient being. That's part of her quirk. You also use her interiority here as her thinking back to herself. The problem is if Toga speaks in her mind and you use italics to have this is how Toga speaks, but then you also use italics for Himiko's interiority, this will confuse the reader. So what I would suggest is I would not italicize this. So there's a couple ways you could go about it. I would not italicize Himiko's thoughts. It's already clear that we're in Himiko's head, right? We know she's the main character. I think you could just restructure this and be Himiko thought back to her earlier days, to happier days. The 4 years and the 4 years I scraped by before running away were horrible. The only Himiko thought back to happier days. The 4 years scraping by before running away were horrible. The only one even like me was Manama. Yeah, I mean you could structure this better, but I think doing this, she don't understand. People just don't give her the wish. I wish she knew that back then. So I think Himiko the 4 want to drink others' blood. They don't have it. I wish she knew that back then. Oh, that's definitely not happier. Thought back to Saturdays. Definitely not happier days. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I was like, you're right. These are not happier days. I wish you knew that. Himiko thought back to Saturdays. The 4 years I scraped by. And then because whenever Toga talks, you always want the reader to know this is Toga talking. Toga is a sentient being. So I think I would go like this. So that way the only time you italicize it is when Toga's responding. Or like you could keep the italics, like you could do that, but you would have to distinguish every single time Himiko thinks. So you'd have to start this tag with Toga thinks in response. That doesn't change the fact we need blood. And this is kind of another variation of speech tags. You would have to set this up every single time Toga talks if you're going to have interiority for both her interiority and Toga. Otherwise, the reader may get lost. So just something to think about. There's so many ways you can go about structuring, especially when you have characters who are speaking telepathically or speaking in the mind. So something to think about. Yep, and now we're going back to the present moment. Oh, for this, I'm pretty sure, was this prejudice? I'm suggesting to put I'm pretty sure this was prejudice, FYI, not prejustice. Yeah, like you're in the last chapter, Himiko and Toga had a full-on yelling match with each other in the last chapter, but they take up. Yeah, and that totally makes sense. Yeah, and I mean, I think from the structuring perspective, it's more just like it's more from structuring, so you don't chance losing the reader. It's more that than anything. It's just structuring format. It's more like a formatting thing. But I think, I mean, I was clear that Toga is like this like sentient, bodiless entity that they're basically talking to each other in her head. That made sense to me. All right. So right now, the problem with Ochaka's bit, um, yeah, so I mean, right now the problem with Ochaka's bit is it's just very wordy. And her dialogue isn't broken up by very much action. There's a little bit of action that happens, but like let's just like look at this single paragraph, for instance. And let's just bring this back to what would be like the normal font. So in a 12-point font, let's just say like this is the font. This single bit of dialogue takes up almost an entire page. From just a reading standpoint, that's just difficult for a reader to look at because especially it's such a long paragraph, and then it's first off made difficult that there's just not that many breaks and that it's a long paragraph. And then second, the majority of it is dialogue. So from a reading perspective, it makes the reader, it can cause you to lose the reader's interest, not because of what the character is saying, but more because there's just no breakup. So what I would actually recommend is I would recommend like finding a way, if you can cut what happens here with her dialogue in half, and then interspersing it with some more action. And you do a couple things like with the index cards, which are great, but I would play into her nerves, right? I think that would help with this, right? Like break, she goes to next before jogging them to alignment again. I would do more of this, and even breaking this up with new paragraphs, so that way it just breaks it up more. She goes with shaking hands. She goes to the next card before jogging them to alignment. So I would just add a little bit more action to break it up even more. Yeah, I just realized how bad that is. I'm sitting here saying, no, that's all. And once again, like this is a rough draft. So like this thing happens all the time. You're totally all good, my friend. But like now, but it's interesting, right? Now that you see it, you're like, oh wow. But you didn't think about it when you're writing because you're like, hey, I'm trying to tell the story. So that totally happens to the best of us. I've definitely in my rough draft of Scarecrow, there's a couple times where I had like it was like a run on thought and it was like 2 pages and I know I didn't space it and break it out correctly. So like I'm not great with action in between dialogue. So that's a good thing that you recognize that. So when you recognize that there's something that you're not as good at, then what I always recommend is go look up like Google tip videos. I mean, you can always ask us. We always have such a great variety of writers, and then try out new strategies for like, hey, I know that I'm not good at this. What are ways that you could improve on it? My recommendation to you, MyBad, is anytime that you have like a piece of dialogue, I would say maybe after like a sentence or 2 sentences, find ways where you can cut the dialogue off and add an action. If you want to add an action to support the dialogue, so like you said, Himiko's nervous. So then what are actions that could support the dialogue, right? Himiko could be, or Ochako could be fidgeting. Like you had her drop the index cards at the beginning. That was great. I want more of that. I want more of her, like she's like maybe she's shaking. What are things that people do when they're nervous? for some reason I picture her with like glasses. Like she pushes the bridge of her glasses up. She messes with her hair. You see her, like, for instance, you could say, Yazuro gave her one after an explosion went off in the fall buildings that were in front of us. A few of our classmates put the fire out, but, and then I could like cut that off right here, but she stopped with a noticeable she stopped and looked to Himiko for reassurance before taking a deep breath to calm herself down. Before taking a deep breath, she continued. Right. So then you do things like that, right? You think about specific actions that could help add to her character development or add to the tension of the scene. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, like, I think with things like that, MyBad, then I think you want to ask specific actions that make sense in the scene. Yeah. And I mean, I think with things like that, you just want to ask yourself, like, what is the point of the scene? Right. So this is a court trial. This is like a type of court trial. What things will make it feel more like a court trial? Like, all right, what things will make it feel more like a court trial? You want you want there to be that tension in the air, right? Tension makes things, could make it feel like it's more of like a court trial. People are nervous with court trials. I think the fact that Ochako is a nervous character was actually a really great decision on your part, right? So I think you play up Ochako's nerves. I like that you play into Sekijiro. I like that you play into Sekijiro being kind of like the professional, like he believes he's trying to like speak up for her. I think that was good. You pick actions that play into the type of attention that you want for the moment. Yeah, I can come up with actions, but most don't make sense. Gotcha. Well, I mean, but I would argue that some of them do. And I think this is part of the trial process, right? Like the index, her dropping the index cards was perfect. And I think things that can help, MyBad is always suggest try different things, like try out different actions. Some of them might work and some of them might not, but you won't know until you put them in. And then when you go on through the second draft, or if you get feedback from people, that's when they'll be like, yeah, this doesn't work, or this does work. And I think that's a good strategy. Like try different things. Because I think there's definitely a lot of actions that you've had throughout like the beginning of the scene that have actually worked very well. Yeah. I think this is the thing that I love about writing. Writing is trial and error. We try things, they work. We try things, they don't work. And it's trial and error. And we see things. So definitely. Yeah. And MyBad, something I'd recommend if you're ever looking for like tips or things to like improve specific types of writing, throw up the question in the Discord as well. I forgot if you're over in the WriteNow Discord. I'll go throw up that type of question in like the writers chat, and you'll probably get some really great ideas from other writers in the community. That's another good strategy as well. If you want to try to get like ideas of like, hey, I don't know what type of action to do in certain situations. We have some really great, we have great writers in the community, and you'll get really different, you'll get different feedback. So that's another thing I'd recommend if you're struggling with like an element of writing. Let's see, worried about not being able to turn it quick. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's basically my feedback for the rest of the piece, because the rest of it is just Himiko with the dialogue, or not Himiko, Ochako with the dialogue. And I think you just have to clean up Ochaka's dialogue. And I think that's really the other big piece. And I think once you practice and you try some ways to clean it up with some action, I think this the rest of this will be a lot cleaner. So yeah, exactly. And like this is another good point that Neil made, right? Describe the opening statements, taking out exhibits, swearing in witnesses, right? But essentially, like we don't really have like a defense. Technically, the defense is like technically the president seems to be the one who's kind of like the one that's weighing the decisions. So you can almost have her being like, oh yeah, but this happened. Maybe you have the president interjecting, or you have another character that's on the aggressive and that's on the offensive. Could be a nice dynamic. Now, those are some good ideas, no? Yeah, awesome. So I'm definitely intrigued by the world. That's everything that I have for you, MyBad. Thanks so much for submitting it. But I'd say thanks so much for submitting it. I'm very intrigued by the world. I like this kind of thing with this quirks and these abilities. I kind of want to know more about Toga and this whole like blood thing with our main character with Himiko. So I'm very intrigued. I'm eager to see like the Madam President become like more of this like badass president. So I'm curious. That's awesome. Yeah. Sweet. But thanks so much for submitting, my friend. Really appreciate it. I hope that feedback was still able to help. I know sometimes, like I said, with fan fiction, I don't feel like I'm always able to give as detailed feedback as I would like sometimes. Awesome. And so that was a really, really great moment. I'm so happy we were able to get through that. Once again, MyBad, thank you so much for submitting that. Now, with where we're at, I think we're with hitting the 3-hour mark. I think we're going to wrap up today's critique show. But I want to say that let's see, as we look towards creative writing on the morrow, if I did not get to your story and you submitted, it will be queued up for the next story and critique show on Saturday, January 25th. So Saturday after next, or let's say you want feedback on yours, submit now, because the submissions keep like they build up. The sooner you submit, the more likely I'll be able to get to your story on the next critique show. So definitely submit if we didn't get to your story today, and we'll see what we got on the next one. Thank you to everyone who submitted stories today. I really liked it. I mean, we had like a nice mix of, let's see. So we had fantasy, folklore, fantasy. Oh, that's right, because 1 and 3 were fantasy, folklore, fan fiction. So that was cool. That's cool. I feel like I haven't gotten a good like grouping of fantasy stories in a while. And you guys know me, I'm the fantasy nerd. So I absolutely love it. Oh yeah, we definitely picked that up. I think that's probably why I liked Madam President. So that's definitely why I liked Madam President. Absolutely. Awesome. So that was very, very cool. Madam President's supposed to be on the evil side. Once again, thank you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all our writers who submitted. As we look towards creative writing on the morrow, I'll be back tomorrow with a free writing sprint stream. And I'm going to get some work on Scarecrow. I need to get through this chapter. I'm struggling on the chapter I'm at, but if I don't feel like writing, I will write anyway. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow. I'll be back at 1 p.m. Pacific, 2, 3, 4 p.m. Eastern for a casual writing. Oh, no, wait, hold on. Just kidding. I'm lying. I am lying. No, tomorrow is not casual stream. I forgot. I'm a liar. All right. I forgot. Tomorrow is something special. I was like, I'm like totally forgetting that tomorrow is another event. Okay, well, that's what you get after I'm on stream for 3 hours. Okay, let me pull up the thumb for tomorrow. Yeah, so tomorrow we actually got something really cool. We're doing a huge community thing with the AuthorTube, WriterTube community. Let me show it up here. No, that's the wrong screen. Yeah, so we actually got something really cool going on over the next week. So starting tomorrow, we're kicking off the AuthorTube and BookTube. It's called the AuthorTube and BookTube Under 1,000 Subs Marathon. Essentially, there's going to be like anywhere between, I think, around 15 writing sprint streams per day from different author tubers and writers in the community. I need to throw up the stuff on the Discord. I'm going to create a Discord channel tonight. Yeah, I need to do that tonight or tomorrow morning for the community so people can chat about it. But it's going to be super cool. Essentially, it's a way that we're already streaming every day regardless, but it's just going to be a bunch of like writing sprint streams, and there'll also be some writing game streams throughout the course of the next week. It kicks off tomorrow and goes until next Sunday. So it's basically a week of basically 15 back-to-back writing sprint streams that are hosted and put on by different author tubers and booktubers in the community. I want to say that there's over like 40, I think. I want to say there's over 40 author tubers and booktubers involved. So it's a lot. This was a really, really cool thing. I think it's a great way to support the author tube and booktuber community. You're like 2 marathons back to back. You're wild, Kauffman. You know what? Go big or go home. You know what? I'm doing it all, my friends. So yeah, it'll be fun. But yeah, so I'm going to be joined, and I think I've already had a couple other writers who are confirming they're going to be joining us tomorrow. So tomorrow, our stream, so you'll probably see my stream will be at like different times because we're hosting the marathon streams on the WriteNow channel a couple of days next week. So I want to say I'm doing it for 4 days, but tomorrow is the first day, and we are going live at, I think 12 o'clock. Yeah. Yeah, so I think we're going live at tomorrow at 12 o'clock is Mountain. So that'd be 11 a.m. Pacific, 11, 12, 1, 2 p.m. Eastern. Come join us as we kick off day 1 of the AuthorTube and BookTuber Marathon. We're going to be doing writing sprints every day. We're going to be trying to be productive. Come join us. If you want, you'll be able to check out other author tubers and writer tubers and booktubers in the community, and it's going to be a trip. So come join us as we kick off this marathon with a bang. I'll be here with others, and it will be fun. That's what we got. If you want to check out more story and critique show episodes, down in the YouTube description is the playlist, The Reading Sprints for Storytellers. And before you leave, don't forget, like the stream on your way out. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, thanks so much for joining us today. It has been an absolutely great show. I always love the story and critique show, but unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.
Right now.
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 Because it's time to write now.